Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Alex Palou now sets himself up for turn number 3. Knows that he's got a couple of corners left to go here to try to put this car where he wants it to be. He is very, very good exiting turn number 3.
And smooth into turn 4 as well. He's at the quarter exit, heading south to the Yard of Bricks.
231.990, the 4-lap average for Alexander Rossi. Did he do it? Alex Palou, lap number 4, 231.955. Yes, he did. The 4-lap average, 232.248 miles per hour.
The speed just not there for Felix Rosenquist through 3 laps.
Consistent run, just not fast enough. All in the 231 mile an hour range. Lap number 4 is in the books. Hit 2 at 231.144, and the 4-lap average 231.375. The pole goes to the DHL machine of Alex Palou with a 4-lap average of 232.248.
Now, stay tuned for the greatest spectacle in racing.
So that's how it sounded yesterday. Ryan Marine, by the way, replacing Chris Denari, who has retired, of course. Ryan, that announcement came just a couple of weeks ago that he would be our guy in turn number 4 that I throw to. And Ryan, outstanding job yesterday, bringing some professionalism that lacks for the first third of each respective lap. But then Alex Palou landing himself on pole for the 110th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Stage is set, and again, we have some, if you will, post-qualifying news to get to. And I certainly understand, I respect and appreciate that for many of you, the 500 is probably a massive event. It is a civic celebration. It is the week in Indianapolis that I think we look forward to, even if you are not necessarily a fan of the sport itself or any particular driver. But the events of this week, and I know that I probably homer it, and I'm using air quotes there, more than the average person. I get it. I understand that. But between Carb Day, which is absolutely awesome, and then obviously the parade on Saturday, which is one of my favorites, and then the race itself, I think it does transcend the sport of motorsports. But when things happen, like a penalty that causes 2 to go to the back of the field, it then dips into and begins talking points of the esoteric and those that can perhaps lose the average audience because, you know, you're thinking, I have no idea what an energy management system is, okay? And therefore, a lot of those penalties, it's very easy to begin talking over the head of the vast majority of the audience. But I will explain to the best of my 2.2 grade point average and 482nd class rank, I will, to the best of my ability, explain what took place. But there's a lot to get to today. Good afternoon to you. My name is Jake Query. Eddie Garrison still in Hawaii. I feel terrible, Caleb Zuber. I do feel bad because Eddie apparently has sent a couple of video updates of his journey, and I was so caught up in my own, and I know that that's shocking to know that I was so self-absorbed I didn't get a chance to see the latest. I know that Eddie had some travel issues getting out to Hawaii. Then he got to Hawaii, and everything was good from there. He had Shawshank on the plane. He has not, to my knowledge, admitted whether or not he watched it. Do we have latest development from Eddie Garrison, Caleb? Do you know?
Well, he told me, and I don't know if he's going to be mad at me for saying this. He said there's a reason he hasn't reached out to you about Shawshank. Take that, you know, however you want.
Well, he's going to divulge it on the air, I would assume, right?
But I did, you know, we were talking last week. We're like, okay, what's the ranking he has to give? Is it top 15, top 20 for us to be okay with it? I think he still has it within that range, but he's afraid to reach out to you about his real opinions, I think.
You think he didn't like it?
I think he thinks it was a hard standard to live up to based on what you told him. That's what I think. But I would tell him the same thing. I think it's one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah, no question. He'll watch it more than once, I can tell you that.
For sure.
Either way, congratulations to Caleb Zuber's Cleveland Cavaliers. Caleb is a native of Ohio and is a Cavs fan, and they were able to get that win yesterday in resounding fashion, despite the fact that they did nothing to once again disprove my theory that James Harden is the most overrated player at this point in his career in the NBA, right?
Hey, he wasn't a negative yesterday. That he had 9 points and 1 turnover, just one. That was good. 1 turnover. It wasn't 5. It wasn't 6. It was just 1.
6 is the number of threes that he attempted, correct?
I think so. I didn't check.
0 of them made, right? I think he was 2 of 10 from the floor.
Yeah, flopped a little bit. The whole thing.
I'm very curious to see what happens with 2 things here about the Eastern Conference Finals. You have New York and Cleveland. I mean, literally, with all due respect, Caleb, because I realize that's your hometown team, but the Cavs, the Cavs have very likable players. As a matter of fact, I remember last year when the Pacers advanced, and I was watching the Netflix series with Tyrese Halliburton, and in that, I don't know if you ever saw this, but Halliburton was talking about it and was like, man, the one bummer of eliminating the Cavs are they're just good dudes. They're just all good guys. Donovan Mitchell's a very likable player. Mobley's a very likable player. There's nothing about them to dislike other than the colors are a little drab. But I'm curious to see what happens with New York with the layoff, because New York was just playing at the highest of high levels. No doubt about that. The overwhelming thought that I have on it is simply this. The Eastern Conference playoffs and the Eastern Conference Finals of note give me zero hesitation into believing that if the Pacers are able to come back at the same level of health they had heading into last year's playoffs, that they are again immediately a serious contender, if not the front runner. But let's get to what happened over the weekend at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And we are going to do the highly anticipated, and I just decided this on the fly. I decided it on the fly. I'm sitting here inside the Hensley Legal Command Center at Happens Higher Hensley, and I'm thinking about the race itself, and I'm thinking about the weekend, and I'm thinking about the fact that I got the experience of going to the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department car impound lot or whatever they call it, to clean out my car. And then there is a weird thing that happens. I'd like to know if I'm the only one here. I'd like to know if I'm the only one that feels this way. The saddest thing to me, and I'm being serious when I say this, I don't recommend this in any way, shape, or form. It is always sad to me. Like it literally, it makes me feel like a child that wants to cry. If I'm ever in, J&V goes a lot to Goodwill stores, okay, and thrift stores. And they're great. And I love everything that they represent. It is so sad, though, to walk down them and go through the stuffed animal aisle. And you see all of these loved, worn, stuffed animals and whatever. They're not real objects. But you get like a Toy Story type feeling in your mind where you're like, this little teddy bear wants to know what it did wrong. Like, why has someone left it, right? And I know that's a weird thing. Maybe I'm the only person that feels that way. Feel free to let me know if that's the dumbest thing you've ever heard. But in the same form, I'm curious of this. Am I the only person that when I had to go and clean out my car in the impound lot, which is where they towed it after that accident on Friday, and again, thankfully, everyone was unhurt, miraculously. I did, over the weekend, have to get further into that accident, and I did not overhear it. The estimation that the culprit car was traveling in excess of 100 miles an hour was verified. And so it's a miracle that everybody's okay, and that's the important thing. But everyone's car was totaled, okay? And now, Friday night, I'm sitting there, and Shannon says, "You're on Instagram with a fire extinguisher." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "I'm looking at Instagram, and there's a video of you with a fire extinguisher." And I said, "Well, I told the story in there. This dude was just rolling around with a fire extinguisher." And so she goes, "Well, you're on." Turns out that the girl who my car slid into that was driving to Chicago after graduating from Butler, her parents were not far behind us. They got out and videotaped the accident scene for the same reason I did, to verify it. Her mom put it on Instagram. Her mom has 1 million Instagram followers. She's an influencer. And so in the video of our daughter was in a car accident, and thank goodness that young lady was also not hurt. But there I am in the background playing Fire Cop. But either way, I am curious if I'm the only one that when I went and cleaned out my car and knowing that now we begin the insurance process and whatever else, and walked away and then turned around one last time to look at my essentially destroyed car, that I felt this like little bit of sadness and this emotional bond knowing that I will never again see that car and like we were saying goodbye. It's like saying goodbye to a person. It's the weirdest thing ever, right? It's a car. It's an object. Whatever. Cars can be replaced. People can't. But nonetheless, it was like, you did me well, buddy. And like, I tried to do right by you. Am I the only one that feels that way? When you are leaving your old vehicle and you'll never see it again, am I the only one that feels that way? I know that's weird. But let's talk about cars and the parts of cars. I don't know exactly what the energy management system is on an Indy car. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the energy management system is part of the chassis that comes in towards the hybrid unit. I believe that's correct. But by the way, do you hear an odd beeping noise, Caleb?
I don't.
I think the chipmunk that runs this computer down here there's something that wants out of this computer, and I'm getting an odd beep. You don't hear that?
I don't. I will try to listen.
Did Boyd or Bowen leave their alarm clock in here?
That is
morning?
Kevin's seat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Kyle Collette and Jack Harvey. Kyle Collette was a great story yesterday in qualifying. And I think there were several storylines that developed yesterday at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that are going to have implication moving forward. The first being, it was a beautiful day, and there was a great crowd out there. And I was thrilled to see it. And thank you to everybody that came out and was a part of it. It was very cool to see. And there were a ton of people there. And because of the fact that there was no qualifying on Saturday, that then pushed everything to a one-day show of qualifying. And I will be honest, I have nothing to base this on. I'm not speaking for the league in any way, shape, or form. But it did make me wonder, maybe not as the priority, maybe not as the initial schedule moving forward, but it did show that there is the blueprint for success for a one-day qualifying show that has excitement and has people out there and maintains people's interest and makes for a great day at the track. It was a great day at the track, and you saw plenty of stuff going on. And so it can be done in a day. Now, you need perfect weather for it, granted. But it was nonstop activity, basically, as opposed to some qualifying days where you get into the hot portion of the day and nobody makes a run and there's just a lot of downtime. Didn't have that yesterday. Nonstop action. But Kyle Collette, and I realize that very few of you probably know of the name Kyle Collette, but Kyle Collette is a rookie. He's 24 years old. He drives for A.J. Foyt. And he was a successful driver in the Indy Next Series, which is the final rung of the ladder of the road to Indy. And last year, he was the runner-up in that series to Dennis Hauger, another rookie in this year's field. And Kyle Collette signed with A.J. Foyt Racing. His teammate is Santino Ferrucci. And we knew that Ferrucci would be fast because Santino Ferrucci has run in the Indianapolis 500 through his first 6 starts. He had the highest, or first 5, I guess it was. He had moved up a total of 54 spots from start to finish in his 500 career. So he knows how to get around the track in a very fast fashion. And last year, again, was right there at the end. So Ferrucci knows his way around the speedway, and we knew he was going to have a fast car. Kyle Collette, we didn't know as much about because he's a rookie. That's always, a little bit more tenuous. And yet, Kyle Collette was really impressive in qualifying. He was fast, but more importantly than being fast, he was clean. And that's not easy for a rookie to do. You're running the razor's edge, and you don't know how a car is going to respond. And he was great. So he qualifies. He puts the car, I think it was 12th. He's inside of the front 4 rows. And then Jack Harvey, whose driver analyst is, or driver strategist, I should say, is Davey Hamilton, who normally serves as the driver analyst with us on the IndyCar Radio Network. And Davey, I'm going to try to get him on the show later this week, maybe on Carb Day, because he's got kind of a packed schedule. And I'll try to get him on. But Jack Harvey's car, Jack Harvey is a teammate of Connor Daly's. Connor Daly obviously has been one of the fastest and I believe the most consistent car every day so far in practice. He has been at the top of the speed charts every single day. Every single stint, essentially, when he's gone out, that Brian Reinbold car, and that car for Connor Daly is the same car, the same team that Ryan Hunter-Reay, quite frankly, probably should have won the race in last year. But he went one extra lap, did Ryan Hunter-Reay, on his last pit stop. He went one extra lap, which then completely dried out the fuel cell. And then when that happens, the fuel pump has a harder time getting fuel. Once you put it back in, it kind of kills out that fuel pump. So Hunter-Reay's day was done after his last pit stop last year. But he was leading and in contention, and I think would have won the race in that car, essentially, that ride that Connor Daly now has. So there is experience there for Brian Reinbold being fast. But back to the energy management system. All of the cars, this is the easiest way that I can say this. When you buy, Caleb, you're gonna start a race team, okay? Zuva Racing, Easy CZ Racing. I believe you said who's going to be your sponsor for this. Now, in your hometown, Dum Dum Suckers are made, right?
That's really what it should be.
And Bit of Honey, right?
There you go.
So you're in the Bit of Honey special, okay? So you get your Bit of Honey sponsorship, and here's how it works. You have to buy a chassis from Dallara. That literally is like the big Lego piece in the shape of a car. Then you have to get an engine from Honda or Chevrolet. In this case, because we're doing a hypothetical, we're going to go with a non-existent engine manufacturer because we don't want to upset anybody in the engine manufacturing business, right? So we're going to go with, you are going to get yourself a Yellow Dot engine. That's a new engine manufacturer, okay? So you get a Yellow Dot engine. So you buy that, and then you get your tires. So you have three major components: the shell of the car, the engine of the car, the tires of the car, okay? All told, that's going to cost you, I don't know, $1.5 million, $3 million, somewhere in there, depending on how good you want it to be. But the Dallara chassis that you're buying is the same that everybody else is buying, okay? There are very specific rules with that chassis that say if there are parts on the car that come out of the box, when you open the box up and you take the chassis out, if it is attached to the chassis at that point, you cannot alter that. Now, there are some parts, because they are not those that come out of the box from Dallara, there are some parts that you can massage a little bit. You can sand them down, you can tape them, you can do whatever if they are auxiliary pieces. But there are, and I'm just going to throw a number out here, there are 20 different parts of the chassis that they say this was manufactured to be in this place and it cannot be touched. Now, the hybrid system, which goes along with your Yellow Dot engine, okay, it goes right next to it, there is basically a box or a part of it, as I understand it, that Dallara has, just like when if you're ever using jumper cables and you pop your hood and there's the little plastic thing that sits over the battery that you got to pop up, okay? That system, because it's part of the Dallara chassis, you cannot do anything to it. There are other parts of the car that if you want, you can tape them to make sure they don't get loose. You can tape them to make them a little bit smoother. You're allowed to do that on a lot of parts. The energy management system is one that you cannot alter. You cannot put tape on it. And the reason for that is because, and this is the big, well, Jake, why in the world, if Caleb has his Dallara and he's got his Yellow Dot engine and he's got his tires, he's already paid for the chassis, why can't he alter it? Here's why. When you see, here's a good example. I assume this technology translated for me on Friday. When I was in that crash on Friday, and there was debris everywhere. They had to shut down, I think, 38th and Michigan for a while because there were car parts everywhere. And yet, myself, the young lady from Butler, the woman that was T-boned, all of us are standing there talking with one another after the fact. miraculously and thankfully, right? That's the important thing. But in automobile technology and in auto racing, the car is made specifically so that upon impact, the energy displaces and sends everything outward away from the driver as to protect the driver from all the energy coming inward. Most technology you see, and if you want to know why the Indianapolis 500 became the biggest race in the world, and if you want to know why people were fascinated by the Indy 500 through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it's because the vast majority of this country either worked on for their source of income, the automobile, or they worked on as a source of leisure and hobby, their automobile. And so people had an interest in the automobile. And the innovation that would go into developing cars to be the fastest and the safest that they could be in racing in Indianapolis ultimately found its way to the showroom, to the cars that we drive on the road. Everyone knows the story of Ray Haroon in the first rearview mirror, Presto Light in the first headlight, back in the early advent years of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And so I would assume that the reason, or a large part of the reason why I was able, thankfully, to walk away from that crash on Friday is because when I was impacted, all of the energy dispersed my car outward and kept the energy away from me. The same is true in IndyCar, and so therefore, there are certain parts to the car that they determine and say, upon an impact, these parts need to have the freedom to be released. You cannot hold these parts hostage because the energy needs to disperse and be able to immediately go away from the driver so that upon impact, the driver is safe when the AMR safety team gets there. And so there is not a team out there, I can assure you. Are there teams that would do what they can to make their car go faster? Absolutely. Are there teams that would do what they can to compromise the safety of the driver? Absolutely not. And so IndyCar looks at this in the post-inspection and says, wait a minute, you put tape and taped down this box that we're talking about in areas that you are not allowed to, because in the event that something happens to your driver, those are parts that need to allow the energy to transfer through them and outwardly away and not contain that within the tub of the car itself. There is no way that Dreyer and Reinbold nor AJ Foyt Racing would knowingly do something and say, you know, if there's an incident, there's a chance it's going to hurt our guy. But, man, we're going to take our chances there's not an incident and make him go even faster. I don't believe they would in any way, shape, or form do that. So it is an example of an oversight that they should have known. But when they put the car through tech inspection, and the tech inspection said, and I'm speaking theoretically, tech inspection said, wait a minute, did you put tape on your car? And they said, well, yeah, of course. I mean, everybody does that. And they said, but you did it in areas that you're not supposed to. Therefore, you are being penalized to the back of the grid. That's, in its most layman terms, and my apologies if that overspoke anyone or bored you to tears, but that's the explanation, as I understand it, as to why Kyle Collette and Jack Harvey will start at the rear of the field for the Indianapolis 500. But at the front of the field, it is, in fact. And I get it. We live in a world where we oftentimes say, and we tire of those that are the best. Tiger Woods was the greatest golfer in the world, and people that never paid attention to golf were watching the guy and absolutely loved everything about it. And he's dominating the Masters in his mid-20s, and people are like, this is captivating, I can't get enough. And eventually he's winning so many majors that people are like, I am so sick of Tiger Woods. They still watched, granted, right? And then we wait to, like, tear people down. The same is true of LeBron James. Arguably the greatest player, no question in my mind, the greatest player of his era, and in my opinion, arguably the greatest player of all time. Certainly the most versatily skilled player of the last 50 years. And an unbelievable talent that takes literally 4 guys from the Hyper and 2 from Perkins and has them in the NBA Finals, and people are like, this guy's a choker. I'm like, a choker? He literally he's like the guy from Breaking Away. He took the little guy from Bad News Bears and the guy from Home Alone and won the little 500 with him. You can't call that a choker, right? Great player, but we want to tear him down because we get tired of those at the top. But in terms of what happened yesterday, I understand why there would be a fatigue about Alex Palou. But I'm going to tell you why you actually should be appreciative of what you witness. And it's not popular opinion. And some of it is maybe stuff you know, and some of it is stuff you absolutely don't. But I'm going to tell you why you should, even at the risk of being fatigued by a pattern of greatness that doesn't go away, why you should be able to celebrate it. And we're going to do the numbers game today. We're not going to do all of them today, but we have 33 cars to give away. I have randomly assigned each driver in the field to a number. You call in, you give me your lucky number, you get that driver. Now, as always is the case, I decided to make up my own prizes. This is what I do. We've done it in the past where we have, sponsored or donated prizes. These are the prizes. There are 3 ways to win. You get the winner of the Indy 500. You get the driver that moves the most positions over the course of the race, with the tiebreaker being he or she who started the furthest back. So if you have 3 drivers that all improved 11 spots, it would be the one that starts the furthest back of those that then wins that tiebreaker. And the third, of course, is the first out. All 3 of our winners will receive a gift card to Chicago's Pizza, which is the best. Fabulous. You can use it at lunch buffets. You can use it for the family meal deal. The winner, the grand prize winner, I've decided this. Not only do you get the Chicago's Pizza gift card, but you also are going to get a perfectly picked out by yours truly from the gift shop, Indianapolis Motor Speedway baseball cap. And as an added bonus, I will get a hero card signed by the winner of the Indy 500 that won you your prize, with a thank you for rooting for me signature and autograph for you, so that you will be the envy of all your friends on the fridge and say, yes, in fact, I do know that driver because I had them in the numbers game on Query & Company. That's how we're doing it this year. We'll give numbers away over the course of the show. But when we come back, it's the part of it on why what you saw yesterday, even if you're not a fan of racing, I'm going to give you a reason why you should be pulling for something that a lot of people are fatigued by. I'll do it next.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Okay, I've got a couple of stories that I'm going to share simply because I think it gives an insight. An insight's the wrong word. A perspective. And I get it. And I think most people today in 2026, it's different than 1986. When I went to the race as a kid, everybody was like, you were rooting for the Unsers, or you're rooting for the Andrettis, or you're rooting for Foyt. And if you liked one, you didn't like the other. There were rivalries. Maybe you were more of a Tom Sneva guy, or like Rick Mears. All of them, right? And I get that today, the Indy 500 is more of a party event than it is a sporting event. And there is an anonymity that comes with the drivers that you didn't have 40 years ago for the aforementioned reasons. I think the automobile and the interest in the automobile and the sport itself are a big factor of that. And by the way, numbers game coming up 10 minutes from now. Actually, about 15 minutes from now. We'll give out the first 5 of them. Alex Palou is on literally like an almost unprecedented run here. What he is doing is remarkable. He's won 4 IndyCar championships. He already has 22 wins. He's a third of the way, essentially, to A.J. Foyt's record of all-time career wins. Not saying he'll get there. I mean, that's a pretty tall task because racing, you get like a couple-year window typically. But because he is so good and because of, admittedly, 2 things, there are 2 things that cause people to not want to root for the guy. The first being the fact that he was in court for a contractual issue where he had signed with McLaren for Formula One, and then it turned out that he was still under contract with Ganassi, and he was in violation of that contract, and it went back and forth, and I think people figured out this was not a guy that was trying to burn anybody. It was a guy that didn't read the fine print and kind of didn't think things through. So there's actually a level of relatability there. And then you get the fact that it comes out a couple of weeks ago that he was one of, I believe it was 14 cars that used push to pass in a race this year where he wasn't supposed to. And he maintained the statement of, yes, but IndyCar is the one that determines. On our dash, all of a sudden it says push to pass is now an option for you. And even though it was during a point in the race where typically that's not the case, he thought, at least according to Palou, well, wait a minute, if they're turning that on and it's on my dash, then obviously they must have changed something I was unaware of and it's available, so I'm going to use it. And half the field did. So people, and then just the fact that he has been so dominant, people are like, this guy clearly is cheating. Let me give you, I'm not here to tell anybody they're wrong about their feelings, but just simply my explanation on some of those. And I'm aware of the fact that I have a unique perspective that I'm fortunate to have, and it does not mean in any way, shape, or form, nor do I pretend it to mean that I'm like friends with or in the inner circle with or anything like that. But I do see it pretty up close because I'm at every practice, every qualifying event, every race. And oftentimes in the races, I am up above looking down at the turns, and I can see into the cockpit of a car. And Long Beach comes to mind. When you run on a street course in IndyCar, you go over an area in the middle of the street where there's a crowning. You don't realize it on the road when you're driving on Meridian or 10th Street or wherever it might be, but there's a slight crowning to any civic street to allow water to run off of it. Doesn't feel like a big deal in your passenger car, but you get in a car at top speed that close to the ground, and it throws off the balance of the car. When I'm at Long Beach and I'm calling the turns, I can look down and see right into the cockpit. I can see the arms of the driver from above, from bird's eye view. Literally, okay? I don't have to see the cars and the colors when they go past me to be able to tell you which car that passes is Alex Palou. Because when most people and their hands are at the 10 and 2 and they go over the crest of that turn or they're turning the car, they turn their hands from 10 and 2 to like 8 and midnight. Alex Palou goes from 10 and 2 to like 945, and 145. His wrist control and his arm strength and reaction time, hand-eye coordination, makes it that much smoother and that much faster, and it forces the car to do that much less work, which allows him to go into corners at a faster rate of speed, and not only with less deceleration, but also in a sharper angle than most drivers are capable of doing. That is a God-given natural ability, and it is plainly obvious to my uneducated eye. But I recall when Alex Palou was a rookie, and I had a young person that was interested in auto racing, and I called Mike Hull. Mike Hull's the managing director for Chip Ganassi Racing. And Mike is a super guy, just a super guy. And Mike is also a champion for the sport of racing. He wants people to be involved. He appreciates people that have interest, and he promotes the sport. So I called Mike Hull and said, hey, I don't want to be a nuisance, but I have a young person interested in this craft, and I didn't know if there's any chance I could bring him by and you could show him the shop at Ganassi and show him how you do things behind the scenes. And Mike Hull said, absolutely. So I go over there, and we're talking, and Mike Hull says to me, you know who is really gifted in the series? And I said, who's that? And he said, that kid at Dale Coyne, Alex Palou. I said, the guy from Spain, the rookie that, like, I think maybe, like, there's even question as to whether or not he'll finish the season because he has no money? And he said, yes. I said, how do you know about Alex Palou? I mean, he hasn't done a whole lot this year. We've only had half the season or whatnot. This is the middle of the year. And Mike Hull said, well, I watched him because I watched him over in Japan where he first began in Super Formula, which is an open-wheel racing circuit in Japan. And Mike Hull said, I love this guy's desire to go to Japan and race because that series, in the opinion of Mike Hull, who would know, he said that series is as challenging to the skill set of a driver in having to tame the horsepower of cars and corral them like a rodeo cowboy and just control the cars itself. It is the perfect breeding ground. And he said, and I don't know him, but for a guy that grew up in Barcelona, Spain, to basically have the humility but the understanding of going to Japan and racing in those series is going to perfect his craft in allowing him to tame and control a race car in the perfect breeding ground. He said, I'm very impressed by it. And the way that he was able, you could see it, to get better over time, I'm impressed by. And he said, that guy's got a bright future. And lo and behold, it wasn't long before Alex Palou, at the end of that year, I was at Mid-Ohio, and I saw him, and I said, hey, a couple of guys have told me, like, they're really impressed by your skill set, but I know you haven't had a lot of results. What's going to happen next year? Because you're on a rookie contract and a one-year deal. And he said, I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I'll be racing next year. I have no money. I have no money, and I have no prospect. I have no sponsors. I have nobody that's interested in me. But I'm going to, I'm going to see what's out there, and I'm going to have to, but I don't know. I honestly don't know where I'll be racing. And then he got the opportunity ultimately and ended up at Chip Ganassi and had the car and had the team and very quietly and methodically went about his business and started winning races. He ultimately, as a guy that did what he had to do to put himself in position, didn't have big-time sponsor, didn't have a rich dad that was writing checks all over the place, didn't have this amazing pedigree or family bloodlines of people that were champions in other sports or whatever that may be, just was a guy that went about his craft and did it by learning, listening, and having humility. He won the Indianapolis 500 a year ago. He won his 4th championship. And I got a call midway through the football season from Indiana University. And they said, hey, we're doing our game on national television with Fox is going to be here, and we're playing Michigan, and we thought it'd be cool to have an IndyCar driver be a part of it, and we thought that they would go along with it because of the Fox tie-in. Who do you think we could get? And I said, well, I'm flattered that you would ask me. I mean, it was somebody I know at IU, but I said, I'm flattered you would ask me to help out with that. Who are you interested in? And they said, well, we might as well go big. Why not the Indy 500 winner? So I gave them Palou's information, his people and whatever else. And they called me back a week later and said, unbelievable. He is all in. He's totally dialed in because he lives in Carmel now. He is a married guy with a young child, and he wants to basically absorb himself in Hoosier lifestyle. He wants to be a Hoosier. So he went to the game. He stood on the sidelines. He wore an Indiana sweatshirt. He participated in everything. He stayed for the whole game. We had him on the show after that. And he talked about how much he loved it and how much he rooted for him. And he was like, look, this is who I am now. I'm a Hoosier. I'm an Indiana guy. And a year ago, I was flying back after the race in Barber in Birmingham. I drove over from Birmingham to Atlanta to fly back to Indy on a very middle-tier commercial airline. And who is on my flight but Alex Palou with his newborn and his wife. And Alex Palou had the baby bag in one arm, the diaper bag in one arm, the baby carrier in the other arm, and walked behind his wife and made sure that after her job at the racetrack being the mom and taking care of the baby, that Palou, now it was his turn. And he did every single thing and let his wife sleep on the plane for the hour-and-a-half flight home. True gentleman. I know that success becomes one that you say to yourself, I want something different. But at the same time, if you are somebody listening to my voice who appreciates those that appreciate Indiana, who appreciates those that are aware of what they have, who appreciates those that did not start at the top, but rather did what they needed to do, not worried about what other people were saying about them, but rather about how they could go about their business to eventually get the attention for opportunity, and then took advantage of opportunity by not only being very good at what they do, but also being very good to those around them, then you should be happy that Alex Palou is your pole sitter for the Indy 500. There are great stories throughout the field, but that guy's as good as any of them. Numbers game next, 239-1070. You know the drill. We'll go over it again. We'll give away 5 on the other side. Hey there, Jake Quarry for Love Heating and Air. Love-HVAC.com is the website. 317-353-2141. An official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer. And Love Heating and Air, over 100 years in central Indiana, the very best. Customer service, great quality of product, goes without saying when you're an official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer. And making sure that your house is exactly the temperature that you need it to be, especially this time of year. Perfect time to make sure that you are right now getting the AC clean, getting set for what soon will be the dog days of summer. I do love the warm weather, but I also love that Love Heating and Air is going to make sure that you are cool when you are indoors. Again, official Heil Heating and Cooling dealer, Love Heating and Air, the very best, over 100 years, 4 generations deep of a family business. Love-HVAC.com, 317-353-2141.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Okay, here's how we do it. Chicago's Pizza gift cards to give away. The very best. I mean, you get the lunch buffet. You get the family meal deal you can use. You get to go to any of their 19 Central Indiana locations. Perfect. Chicago's Pizza and our numbers game. And then if you are the champion, if you get the winner of the race, not only do you get the Chicago's Pizza experience, but you can proudly wear your IMS hat. And then when you enjoy the pizza so much that you take some of it home with you and you put it in the fridge, you open up the fridge, and right there on the refrigerator is your hero card of the winning driver with the note of how much they appreciate the fact that you listen to Query and Company. Right there as part of the big prize for the grand winner. So you get the winner of the race, you get the biggest mover of the race, or you get the first out. You give me a number 1 through 33, you get assigned a driver to that. Caleb, we have callers lined up. Would you please introduce to me who is the first in this illustrious game?
We'll start with Jameson.
Jameson, what's up?
How's it going, man?
It's going, man. And every time you call in, I make a reference to the wire, I believe. I'm not going to do that now, but I'm going to ask you this, Jameson. You have been to how many Indy 500s?
We talked about this, man. I won some Carb Day tickets last week or 2 weeks ago, and I don't remember the count. It's in the 30s, though,
okay,
or close
perfect.
to the 30s, I want to say.
So you know a little bit about, you know your way around a little bit, right?
Know my way around quite a bit, I think.
Do you have a favorite driver, just out of curiosity?
This year or overall?
Both.
Man, I'm rooting for Elio big time this year. Drive for 5, that's awesome. And then, man, long-time Dan Weldon fan, big-time Dan Weldon fan. Missed the guy. Wish he was still here, man. Great to see his kid race.
Okay. With that, what number would you like 1 through 33?
I'm going to take 26 for Dan Weldon.
26 for Dan Weldon. Jameson, you got a pretty good one. This guy is, and I think that he probably wanted a little more speed once he did his second run of the day, but he is flat fast at that speedway. And a couple of years ago, he led a number of laps throughout the first stint. He has started in the front row, and he is always quick. You have Renus VK in the middle of row number 4. Renus VK for Jameson. All right, who is next, Caleb?
Steve is next.
Steve, how are you?
Good. How are you, Jake?
You know what? I can't complain. Steve, you sound like a happy-go-lucky guy. Are you an energetic guy?
Yes, sir.
Have you called the show before, Steve?
No.
Really?
First time.
First time? Okay. And how long have you listened to this program, or is your radio simply broken?
I've listened to the radio. You listened to you for about 10 years now.
Really? Okay. Well, we appreciate that. How old a fella are you, Steve?
51.
51. Okay. Graduating class of 93 from high school, somewhere in there?
Yes, sir. Ben Davis.
Ben Davis. Okay. So that would be like the Chris Ings would have been around your time, right? Something like that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. All right. What number would you like, Steve?
Give me 24, please.
How many races have you been to, Steve?
About 4.
Do you have a favorite driver?
Alexander Rossi.
Rossi's your favorite driver, huh?
Yes, sir.
Well, I got news for you. You did not get Alexander Rossi, but you got a guy that used to be his teammate. He starts outside of row number 2. You have Patricio Pato Award to Steve, one of the heavy favorites, I think. A heavy favorite. All right, who's next, Caleb?
We'll go with Brian.
This is how we do the numbers game, and we've gotten a lot of research on this. As a matter of fact, we just got the other day, the folks at Marconi called, said they'd like for a clip of this. This is how well this. Brian, you said?
That's right, Brian.
Brian, how are you?
Good.
What do you think of the numbers game, Brian? Are you a fan of the numbers game? You called in, so you must somewhat enjoy it, or do you find it to be laborious radio?
No, it's good.
Okay. What's your favorite part? Is it just the heavy anticipation of waiting to find out who you have?
Yes.
Okay. Brian, what number would you like?
31.
Is there a significance to the number 31 in your life, Brian?
It was my high school basketball number.
Oh, really? Well, that's a good number to have in Indiana. What high school?
Morristown.
Morristown. They had was it Brady Atkins that was at Morristown? Is that right?
Yeah, led the state in scoring.
Yeah, he was a heck of a player. Okay. Do you have a favorite driver? Let me ask you that, Brian.
Alonzo Sr.
Oh, yeah, man, me too. He looked like my dad. Was great in 87 when he won it, even though I like Guerrero as well. Well, I got news for you, Brian. You are Hoosier through and through, and so is this guy, Connor Daly. Connor Daly in the middle of row number 3 for Brian. 2 more to go here. Who do we got, Caleb?
Jonathan.
Jonathan, what's up?
Hey, how we doing?
I'm well, and you?
Doing okay, yeah.
Okay, what number would you like, Jonathan?
Well, I was kind of hoping I was going to get Connor Daly, but I'll do number 23 because that's Connor Daly's number.
So you're a Connor fan, right?
Well, I'm rooting for him this year, just because he's from Noblesville, so he's Hoosier. So
you got, Jonathan, a guy that is kind of Hoosier, even though he is proudly Buckeye. You got Graham Rahal. Graham Rahal goes to Jonathan. We have one left. Let's go to Ernie. Ernie, what's up?
What's going on, Jake?
You're looking at it, Ernie. What number would you like?
Number 3.
Ernie, just out of curiosity, how often in your life, how old a fella are you?
I'll be 51 in July, so 50 currently.
Okay. So happy birthday coming up in July.
Thank you.
Listen, when your name is Jake, for the last 10 to 15 years, especially if I'm wearing khakis, I don't go anywhere without somebody making a State Farm joke, right? I mean, it's after a while you're like, okay, I get it, right?
All right. Yeah.
I mean, and then Jake the Snake. I mean, that was a big thing when I was a kid. What's the longest you've gone in your life when you introduce yourself to somebody where they don't reference Bert?
It's been a long time. I mean, once I got an adult, it doesn't happen too much anymore. So.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Are the Ernie and Bert? Do they still do like for kids? Is Sesame Street? Are they still roommates?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay.
I actually I bowl too. I got a bowling shirt with Bert and Ernie on it. I'm a bowler.
See, I knew. I was gonna say. I knew it had to be somewhere there. Okay, Ernie, what number would you like?
3.
3. Ernie,
Yeah.
do you have a favorite driver?
This year it's Connor Daly, but Al Unser Jr. back in the day was my guy.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you like Connor Daly, you probably like this guy because I think of them kind of in the same breath. They have worked together at some point, but they have a lot in common in terms of just the cross-pollination of their Hoosier roots within the Speedway itself. Ed Carpenter inside of row number 5 goes to Ernie. And we might as well, because I see it here, and he's calling from out of state, and he knows about the bit of honey card that Caleb has. I got to go with Mo from Northwest Ohio. Mo, what number would you like?
I'm going to take 29. It comes from the numbers my kid had in high school and my daughter in volleyball, the numbers she had.
Now, Mo,
So
let me
I'm gonna
ask you
take
something.
29.
You've never been to the Indy 500, correct, Mo?
Never have, no, but I've watched it forever and listened on the radio forever, and we just never had the means.
So you do have some familiarity with the race itself, right, Mo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Everybody talks about the pole winner. Everybody thinks the pole winner's got the big advantage, and Palou definitely has that. But I've always felt that perhaps the best starting position at the start of the race is not the pole, but actually a different position. Do you want to guess what position that would be?
I'm going to say the third spot.
Correct. Outside of row number 1, because you can kind of basically you can cut people off, right? Not like the guy did on Friday on Michigan. David Malukas outside row number 1. Mo from Northwest Ohio has David Malukas in his first year driving for the captain, Roger Penske. Speaking of Mo, he listens to this program because he's a Colts fan. He lives in Northwest Ohio. That's his connection to Indianapolis. And Mike Chappell to talk about what is happening with the Colts coming up in just under 5.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Practice back underway. You just heard Brendan mention that for the Indy 500 today. And there was talk that they were going to move that up today because I think it's supposed to rain later today, but I think they'll get it in. It's a 2-hour practice, 1 until 3. And then the last practice, Carb Day, on Friday. That is, and I mean, obviously, like everybody, I'm hoping the weather holds out for that. Carb Day is, I love everything about it. It just, the party atmosphere of it, the spirit of it, the energy of it. It's literally Indianapolis's, like, skip school day. I don't mean for kids to skip school. I'm saying for adults to get out of work for the day. And it's like senior slop day all over again. Mike Chappell yesterday, I know, was watching qualifying because he actually texted me a question about it while we were in the middle of it. But, of course, there's also always Colts stuff to talk about as well from CBS 4 and WXIN Fox 59, where you will see the Indy 500. Chap joining us now. Chap, did you enjoy qualifying? Now, did you say, Caleb, he has his mic muted?
He does. I can see it right.
There we go.
I'm a freaking rookie. I apologize. I can't keep up with the rule changes. It's just kind of squirrely that you've got to qualify. Then you got to be fast 12, and then you got to be fast 6.
Yeah.
So you got to be on it. But no, I enjoy it. I enjoy it because I'm at home on my recliner, and I can flip back and forth between that and the PGA. So it was the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it's a pretty good day, right? Pretty good day.
Yeah. Then I get to watch the Fever at 6 o'clock, so it's a great day.
So, Chap, I'm going to ask you here. I'll lead with this. I've talked probably more than I should about the fact that, and you mentioned it too, and thank you for saying, hey, glad you're okay after that accident, which I was. But I had to go and clean out my car over the weekend in the impound lot, and if you've never done that, a guy like goes out with you with he's in a pickup truck and he follows you out there in the middle of this, it's basically a car graveyard, right? And I'm cleaning it out, and the guy, he goes, you got 15 minutes to get all your stuff and get out of here. And I go, okay. So he's standing there with the stopwatch, basically. Nice enough guy, but I'm cleaning it out, and I'm videotaping my car and everything. And as I'm doing all of it, the silence and just kind of the mood and the atmosphere is broken by him finally saying, well, I got to ask, is Riley Leonard going to be the backup, or are they going to stick with AR? And I'm like, hey, let me carry this box out of the back of my car, and then I'll answer the question for you. But I'll simply pass the question on to you, Chap. Is Anthony Richardson really going to end up on this roster once we get through training camp?
I guess. If not, what's he doing here? You could cut him today. There is no plus or minus to cutting him financially. So, and they can carry him the way it is. What is it? $10.5 million, whatever it is. And that's what that's what he counts if he's gone. Again, you and I have talked. It's sort of black and white. He's here. He's not. I would cut him just because of all the stuff that's gone on, the baggage. And then I can argue just as strongly that he is their best option at backup if Jones has a setback or if Jones gets hurt, which Daniel Jones has been known to do. You're not going to find if Anthony Richardson can't beat out Riley Leonard, then there's really a problem with Anthony Richardson. And I don't mean that as a slight to Leonard, although I'm sure it comes off that way. And if they cut Richardson, they're not going to find anybody better. So as much as you do, almost everything you do is what's the best for the team. And that's what they did with Kenny Moore II. They got rid of a player who can still play, but is not a good fit in this system. And that's why he and Richardson were different. Both guys requesting trades. So, yeah, I thought if they were going to get rid of Richardson, they would have done it. They haven't. And I hope, and we'll tell by watching how they do things, that this is an open competition for the number 2 job. If not, then what is Anthony Richardson here for?
Chap, how about this? And I don't know that I've ever asked you this. Do you believe that Riley Leonard was the backup obviously we know why he got reps last year, but is Riley Leonard still thought of as the backup quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts because they believe that much in him and believe that he can be a valuable part of their future, or because due to the injury last year and other attrition, they had no other option at the backup?
He was backup by default because of Richardson's eye injury. And I'm convinced as I sit here that if Richardson had been healthy, he would have come off the bench. Phillip Rivers would have not come off the couch. And I think there's a very good chance to make the playoffs with Richardson, which would have been a pretty amazing story. I think they would have won a couple of games with Richardson. I just do. Although I'll tell you, Seattle, I still don't know how they lost that game. With a quarterback that was so limited, with a game plan that was so limited, they should have beat Seattle out there. They just should have. But I just think that they've painted themselves into a corner with Daniel Jones. He's the guy. It started with the trade for Sauce Gardner and the 2 first-round draft picks, and then you get the 2-year, $88 million. So he's your guy. And now you've got to decide what to do with Richardson. They tried to trade him. The phone lines were open, and no one would give up even a 6th or 7th round draft pick for him. So it appears he's here. If that's the case, and we can argue whether he should be here or not, but if he's here, doggone it, he needs to be competing even with Leonard as the backup.
Overall thoughts on the schedule?
They better get off to a good start. It's a tough start. With the first 5 games are really pretty brutal. If you believe Baltimore, they've got the guys. They got Jackson and Henry and all those guys. Kyle Hamilton. Got Houston in there. Pittsburgh, I don't know. I don't care who the quarterback is at Pittsburgh. They've won there twice, once since 1968. So it's a tough schedule to start with. Last year, the schedule allowed them to get off to a good start, and they took advantage of it. They've got to find a way to get off to where it's not, 1-4, which is tough to overcome. It just is. You only play 17. I watched the Reds play, and they just tease you like a son of a gun. They're 20-9 at one point, and then they lose 8 or 9 in a row.
Yeah.
But you play 160 plus, so you can overcome that. It's tough to overcome 1-4, 1-5 in the NFL.
What do you think, Chap, when you look at an NFL schedule? Mike Chappell, my guest, CBS 4 and WXAN Fox 59. Realistically speaking, and I know the year that Manning had the bursa sack, I think, was the infection that he had, and they started out slow, and then but it's Manning, right? It's a little bit different.
Well, the MVP.
What's that?
He won the MVP there.
Yeah, exactly, right? So aside from the anomaly of a generational player like a Peyton Manning, for the most part, in your opinion, for an NFL team, the amount of time that there's no going back from who you are, if that makes sense. When you get off to a slow start, you can plug through a slow start through how many games, at what measuring stick is it, what week is it where you go, at this point, it is what it is.
Well, Bill Polian always said Thanksgiving, but he had Peyton Manning. I'll let you know who we are around Thanksgiving. That's a long time. You can't win divisions or get a playoff berth in the first month, but you can bury yourself. I would say 5 or 6 games. If you're sort of treading water, that's a good thing. If you get into that 1-4, 1-5 start, it's just so hard. Yes, the schedule eases up, but then, you're going to have an injury here or there that's going to, chop away at how good you are. I would think after 5 or 6 games, you've got a really good idea, unless you've got that guy. Maybe Kansas, and again, Kansas City's the second game. I'd rather play KC week 2 than week 12. There's a chance that Mahomes won't be ready. If he's ready, he's not going to be Mahomes. He's going to be something less.
I was frankly, when did Mahomes' injury happen? Do you recall exactly?
Week 13, week 14, I think.
And it was an ACL, wasn't it?
It was two knee ligaments. Yep. So
I was, and maybe I'm just really naive, But I still am stunned that it's like this assumption and automatic that he plays week 1, right?
Right. And that's sort of what the Colts have with Jones and the Achilles. You know, everybody says the season opener. Now they've really gotten more confident with the start of training camp. I don't think he's going to open up on PUP, which a lot of players do just to ease in. I really think starting next week when we get to see some OTA practices, I think he'll be out there doing something. I'm not saying high stress at all. I'm just saying out there leisurely throwing the football, but taking his drops. That's encouraging. And he and Mahomes are different quarterbacks. Yeah, Jones has got some mobility, but not like Mahomes. Mahomes is different. He uses his legs a lot more. So whether we're going to see Jones at his mobility high level, I don't know. But guys are coming back so much quicker from these injuries. Two knee ligaments. That's for Mahomes. That's pretty intense. But what I've read over there that they're staying week 1. We'll see. I'm more confident in Jones being ready than I am Mahomes.
Chap, I've never asked you this question. Mike Chappell, my guest. Aside from the obvious, Peyton Manning, Edgerrin James, Reggie Wayne, we know those guys, right? We know about them. We know about Edgerrin James's, just his fun quirks in a good way. He's very intelligent, all those things. I want you to dip into the past. I want you to dip into the recollections, the nostalgia for Mike Chappell. Give me a Colts player that I hate to say is a forgotten, but one that maybe never necessarily got the total headlines, but deep down you're like, man, it was fun when that guy was around. He was just a great dude, a great story, always a fun soundbite, and just when he was there, he was one that I knew that we could talk to. I knew he was going to be honest, and he just was a good feel all the way around.
Rob Morris was a good one. People forget that, the 2006 Super Bowl they win, well, it's because of Bob Sanders coming back, and it was. But it's also when they put Rob Morris back at linebacker. I think they replaced Gilbert Gardner, I think it was. And Rob was always good. It's funny, if you remember the Tampa game, when there was a long pass to Keenan McCardell, I believe it was, and all you see, he's running open down the middle of the field, and all you see is Rob Morris.
Yep.
Chasing. And the next time we saw him, or maybe the training camp the next year, he said, "That wasn't my guy. It wasn't my guy," and he knew he'd caught hell for it. But I like guys like Rob Morris, Gerard Powers, Antoine Bethea. He was at rookie minicamp on Friday, I think it was. They bring guys back to talk to the rookies. Those guys just got it. You knew the first time you sat with them, they were a cut above. And some things stick with you. I remember after the rookie minicamp, I don't remember what year it was. I wish I could, the year, but I was talking to this 3rd-round draft pick, the Drew Carey lookalike, Brandon Burlsworth.
Yep.
And he was going to be their guard for 10 years. And we talked for 15, 20 minutes and all this. And then he leaves and he goes back to Arkansas and he's killed in an auto accident, 5 days later. I still see Marty Burlsworth every year. He comes back for one game and he's got the Burlsworth kids and all that. Those are the guys that, it's, Edgerrin and Reggie are my all-time favorites. And you had to deal with Marvin, who he's softened a little bit, and Peyton and Andrew Luck and all these guys. But it's those guys, it's the other guys that you deal with all the time. It's funny, some people in media had trouble with Marshall Faulk because he was moody. But if I'm out there 4 days, all I need is 1 day. If he's crappy 3 days and I get him 1 day, then I had a good week. But it again, and Rob Morris's sin was always being drafted in the first round and never being the guy that they really needed. Maybe like a Kwity Paye, who was a good player, but not what you
right.
needed.
If Kwity Paye had been a 3rd-round pick, he'd be fine, right?
2nd-round pick, you'd be fine but then you need to be that 12 sack guy, and that's not what he is. So if I sat here and started thinking about it, there'd be more guys like that. But the Gerard Powers and Ray Buchanan, what a great guy Ray Buchanan was, big play Ray. Those are the guys that sort of stick with you, the Tariq Glenn's, Adam Meadows, and and all those guys. So they've had a bunch of really good players, great players, who would have been good on their own, but a lot of these guys coincided with Peyton and Marvin and Reggie and Edgerrin and all these guys, and had good careers for being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and by the way, Falk, it's funny, when I went from here to St. Louis and Falk had been traded to the Rams, and Falk was moody there for certain, but one thing about him, chap, that I got to hand it to him, he figured out, or I was obviously at the very early part of my career and was a very behind-the-scenes guy in Indy when he was here, but once he knew that I had worked in Indy briefly and had kind of mentored through Indy, he was great. Like Falk it was almost like he felt a comfort in St. Louis of having somebody from Indy that was there covering him. And then, of course, he obviously had plenty of gas left in the tank in his career, Marshall Falk, once he was in St. Louis. All right, chap, lastly, what is the next thing that we're looking for here? We have the schedule release. We've gone through the draft now. What sorts of things are you looking towards or keeping an eye on between now and camp?
Well, this week we talk to players and coaches. We get assistant coaches. I'm eager to talk to Reggie, always, because he's always good to talk to. But I want his view on how they compensate for Michael Pittman's absence and all that Pittman did. And then next week we watch him on the field. And this is a situation they've created. But how is that backup quarterback? How are they divvying up the reps? When they do 11 on 11, Jones won't be handling those plays. So it's only natural. How are they doing Leonard and Richardson? Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? Is Leonard getting most of them? If that's the case, that tells you something. Again, we'll get, I think it's over the next 3 or 4 weeks, we get 2 practices, one next week and one the week after. Then we get 3 days of minicamp. We'll get a really good idea of how they plan on using people, primarily the quarterbacks, because it's a quarterback-driven league.
Chap, appreciate the time as always, and we'll talk to you soon. The NFL is always obviously topical in the news, so we'll talk to you soon. But certainly enjoy the race on Sunday from the Lazy Boy.
I'm wondering, will we see your accident like on On Patrol Live?
If only we could have done it over in Lawrence or Beech Grove when they were still on that, right? You could watch it on one of your reruns.
You talked about the guy took you out to your car at the police lot, and I used to watch, was it Parking Wars?
Oh, yeah.
And the impound lot, when people had a hell of a time getting stuff out because they didn't have the right information. So I'm glad at least you got your car cleaned out.
And here's the thing, Chap, I will tell you this. I'm cleaning out my car, right? And it is what it is, right? And I'm cleaning it out, and then I got to kind of talking to the guy, and he was a nice dude, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm actually leaving this job." I said, "Oh, really? You get a new job or what?" And he goes, "Nah, it's too hard to deal with." And I said, "What do you mean? I mean, you just drive people out and whatever else." And he goes, "Well, that car that you saw leaving right before you." And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Those were family members. They were having to come to clean out the cars of their loved one, but it was a fatal." And
so, jeez.
And he's like, and I've got to do that a lot, and it's just too much. Yep. And that would be, and that's when you're like, you know what, I'm pretty fortunate, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm glad you came out of that. All right.
Good perspective there. Appreciate the time as always, Chap.
Next week, bud.
All right, Mike Chappell joining us on the program. By the way, earlier this morning, I was on with the morning show guys, and Kevin asked me about this. I thought I had mentioned this on the show, but I certainly know that I had mentioned it on the podcast I do with Derek, and then Alex Golden picked it up and wrote a column on it, which I appreciate. But to give, and I didn't think it was overly, because that was like a week ago or so when I mentioned it. But even though I know now that it's been quite some time since the Pacers acquired Ivica Zubac, and then obviously we know what happened with the draft pick. After they found out their pick was going to the Clippers, at that point, it was, and I will stand by it, I mean, I was talking to somebody who absolutely would know about the process of the acquisition of Ivica Zubac. And what the Pacers, I can assure you, I mean, I 100% stand by this. that the Pacers went into their negotiation with Ivica Zubac, or with the Clippers, I should say, for Ivica Zubac, and their biggest priority was getting Zubac was only going to be relevant and needed if they kept their core together, because they knew that they were one half from winning the NBA title. They knew that they owed it to that group and that core. And by that group and that core, I mean, we're talking about, obviously, Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard, Obi Toppin, Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam. You could probably put Jarris Walker in that mix now as well. I'm probably missing one, but you get what I'm saying. And so they went into it, as it was explained to me, they went into those negotiations knowing that they did not want to break up their core. And the two names that were mentioned to me as examples of who they did not want to part with within that were Obi Toppin and Andrew Nembhard. So I very strongly believe, and it was very strong, basically said to me that those were the names that came up. And the Pacers said, we do not want to part with our core guys. That would negate the reason why we're going after a center, because that's the only position that we don't have locked down from the group that went to the finals. And so that's when it then came into discussion of, okay, in that case, then we're going to need Mathurin. And then I would assume that Isaiah Jackson was probably, as much as anything else, a salary match and the draft pick. And the Pacers said, now this part is my belief, but I strongly believe it. The Pacers, it was a number one pick or bust. They absolutely wanted A.J. DeBonsa. And if they had landed at 2, 3, or 4, I think they were okay, if need be, having to move from that, although they would have obviously liked to have had a player there. But they were I think they were all in on DeBonsa being their guy. That's who they were going to take if they had number one. So they wanted the fair shake at number one, and that's why they said, we've got to go top 4 protected to give ourselves that shot at number one. And obviously that busted, and they didn't get it. But the reason why they were willing to have that pick be part of the mix is because they did not want to interrupt their core. And the two players that were mentioned in that to me were Toppin and Nembhard. And I totally agree with that. There are those I realize that would say, you're crazy if you had to part with Obi Toppin in order to get and that way you could have kept the pick. I get it, but I think it was Toppin and Nembhard. And I would not have done that. Simply would not have done it. 20 years ago, by the way, Indianapolis 500 won in pretty dynamic and exciting fashion. Almost everybody thought one thing was going to happen, and that was that Marco Andretti was going to win the race. And in fact, another thing happened, and that was that Sam Hornish did. And Sam Hornish came roaring into view basically as they were leaving turn number 3. Chris Denari is the one that first saw it, and Sam Hornish right on the heels. Obviously, in earlier laps, he had tried to make us move. Marco shut that door, and it seemed like that was going to be it. But nonetheless, pretty exciting finish 20 years ago. Hard to believe it's been that long for the Indy 500. But the guy that won that race, that was born in the same hospital as Caleb Zuber, is going to join us coming up top of the hour. Sam Hornish Jr. at 2.
Barry and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Caleb, if you could, please, the breaking news sounder. Okay, this just happened moments ago at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a pretty big crash. The first incident of, so far, the month. It involves, from what I can tell here, Alexander Rossi in turn number 2. I mean, major carnage and a number of cars here. Cannot speak to whether or not any drivers were hurt, but Alexander Rossi with a very hard hit in turn number 2. I got to make sure that that's not Christian Rasmussen, but I believe it's Rossi. Rossi was then, or whichever was the first of the ECR cars involved, was then hit by Palou Award. So Palou Award, who initially got through, I take that back. It looks like Award may have gotten through. But either way, a number of cars here that were involved. Alexander Rossi confirmed is the one that was the first. Rossi got loose in turn number 2 and got loose. And then I believe Palou Award was involved as well. There were a couple of other cars that had to go around the area. It was a really big impact for Rossi. This is the first incident really of the month happening in turn number 2. And I am almost certain it is either Lundgaard or Palou Award, but I believe Palou Award is the other car that was involved. Rossi did get a little bit of air underneath him when this happened, and then it looks like at least 2 other cars were involved. But I'm watching here on the monitors, and I don't know if we're just seeing a clean feed, but it's not showing the graphics as to what other cars were involved. Award was definitely involved. He spun then into Rossi. Palou Award has come to a stop on the backstretch. So too Rossi. Looking at it here, it looks like Connor Daly just got through it. Connor Daly went through, and then you could see him looking in his mirrors to find out what happened behind him. So Daly got through that okay. And this was obviously one of the things that we thought about when you consider the fact that you have 33 cars in the race. Now, all of these cars would have, the bigger teams are going to have a backup car that they can go to. But, the driver has to be cleared as well. That's the other, clearly big concern is that the driver has to be cleared. Rossi, and this is the good news, Alexander Rossi did get out under his own power, but he is limping significantly. Rossi got out under his own power, but he is limping, favoring his left leg, and he got into the AMR safety team. Award is definitively involved, and it looks like Christian Lundgaard. I can't tell for certain, but from where I'm sitting, it looks like as well that Christian Lundgaard might have been involved in this incident. But from looking at it right now, and I'm watching from here in a studio, it looks as though there are definitively 1, 2, 3. I think there's 4 involved cars. No, I take that back. Looks like 3 involved cars. Okay, now looking at it, I take that back. That is the machine. I thought that was Award. That might actually be, now that I'm looking at it, I believe that's Romain Grosjean. And I know that, and my apologies that I'm sitting here clarifying all this while we are on the air, but I'm watching a clean feed of it, and it's not showing graphics as to who the drivers are and the views, and I understand this. They intentionally do this from the television camera. They always await to make sure that the driver is okay before they make sure that the driver is okay before they, in any way, shape, or form, lock in on it. But there is no doubt that when Rossi got loose, Palou Award then had to get on the brakes in order to not hit Rossi, but that spun Award's the rear of his car. He collided into Rossi, and then as well coming through, and I think a bystander, because there was nowhere to go, was Romain Grosjean. So it appears as though those are the 3 that are involved. But this is, again, when you look at the starting lineup of the race itself, and you have to know then what happens. I mean, Rossi, admittedly, who is starting in the middle of row number 1, when Rossi got out, he was limping pretty significantly. Does that mean? Now, the other thing that people will ask, it is the car, not the driver, that qualifies. So, in the event that Rossi, and this is merely conjecture. As a matter of fact, I will, in respect to Alexander Rossi, I'll remove Rossi from the situation. So let's say that there's a driver named John Smith that's in the Indy 500. There's never been a Smith to qualify for the race, by the way. But let's say that John Smith is in the Indianapolis 500. He's qualified his car in row number 6, and then in practice, after qualifications, John Smith has a crash, and John Smith cannot drive, physically speaking, in the race itself. John Smith's team then picks Caleb Zuver to drive for him, and Caleb would start in the middle of row number 6 because it is the car, not the driver, that is qualifying. Now, if you have to completely change the car altogether, you can go to a backup, and then you start at the back, or you can try to fix that car and start where it's designed. But that's where things stand now. My apologies for having to do that basically on the fly, as it happened literally as we were coming out of the commercial break. So that is where things stand, and we will find out and certainly hope the best. Hope the best for all involved. Romain Grosjean, that is definitely his car. Alexander Rossi, that is definitely his car. And I'm 99.999% certain that Pato O'Ward is the third car involved. Did not look like O'Ward and Grosjean had the kind of impact that Rossi did. Rossi was the initial impact, and it was a hard hit in turn number 2. NBA playoffs. This happened to me last year, Caleb. I'm going to need your help here. This happened to me last year. And I'm embarrassed to say it, and I apologize for saying it. But kind of a crazy weekend, not just professionally, but obviously just a lot going on where I was kind of away from where my normal attention spans are and being able to watch. I know, obviously, that the following, and I need you to fill in the blanks for me here, Caleb. I know for a fact that the Knicks and Cavs are in the Eastern Conference Finals. I know for a fact that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is your 2-time now most valuable player. I know for a fact that Shams got grief from people for breaking that news, which is absurd because his job is to reveal exactly that. And I know for a fact that Oklahoma City is in the Western Conference Finals, and I'm under the assumption they're playing San Antonio, but I'm embarrassed to admit that I am not definitive that San Antonio has advanced into the Western Conference Finals. That stands where?
Yes, game 1 tonight, Jake. Spurs, Thunder.
Gotcha.
So you have that correct. And I think you just brought that up, that like this happens during your busy time in the Indy 500. I remember listening last year, and it was the same thing where you guys, you're covering the Pacers, you're covering the Indy 500, and I remember listening, and you're like, I got to be honest, I don't know who has won between Denver and Oklahoma City. I don't know who's playing the Timberwolves in the conference finals. So it is just like the Indy 500 every year. You have no idea what's going on in the Western Conference playoff. That's an annual thing for you.
It is.
And yeah, so you got that right.
I'm out there all day, right?
Absolutely.
And so I don't know. Now, I do think Oklahoma, again, is there a rust factor that sets in with the layoff? I don't know that, but you wonder about it, right?
Yeah.
And so what will that mean? We'll find out, right?
I think this is interesting too with that series, Jake, because I think a lot of NBA fans are like, oh my gosh, yeah, I want to root for the Spurs. I want to root for Wembanyama. I don't like OKC, but here's my opinion on it. Wemby is probably going to have 6 of the next 9 titles. I don't want it to start yet.
I totally agree.
I'm okay, and I know that's not popular to say in this market because OKC is not the most favorite team around here, but I can wait another year for Victor Wembanyama to start winning his titles.
Well,
personally.
The East, to me, again, I think the East is extremely underwhelming, number one. Number two, I think the Pacers have an outstanding chance of once again getting right back to where they were. But even though we talked about, and believe you me, I absolutely was praying that they had a chance at Debonsa. I was literally like the night before Christmas when it came to thinking about what the Pacers would be if they got A.J. DeBonsa. Having said that, I also did feel to some extent, and I'm sure the rest of the league feels this way, that you have like a 2 to 3 year window before, if he stays healthy, Wembanyama becomes just unstoppable force, right?
That's how I feel. So I'm good right now. I wouldn't mind seeing Oklahoma City win, but I don't know. It'll be interesting. A lot of people, I think, would say that that's the finals. I don't think they think the Knicks or the Cavs. And
I would agree with
that. Totally respect that and probably agree.
Pata Award, by the way, is scheduled tomorrow, and this would still be the case, I'm assuming. Pata Award tomorrow from 4 until 6 at the Kroger on Crawfordsville Road in Speedway. This is an annual tradition. I love doing it. I'll be out there. I'll be calling into J&V during it, out there with the Arrow McLaren team. And in the past, we had the entire team for Arrow McLaren. The award just has a huge fan base, and it's awesome. And so Pata Award is scheduled to be there from 4 until 6. I would assume that is still the case, even though they haven't said, and I have not seen it, but I'm certain that he was involved in this incident at this. And I haven't seen anything yet on social media. I would imagine that a lot of people have probably posted now about who was involved in this crash at the Indy 500. But definitively Rossi was, and I'm fairly certain that Award was involved from his car standpoint, but it did not, and I certainly hope that no one was hurt. That goes without saying. But you do wonder what that means. So we'll let you know if that changes in any way, shape, or form. Sam Hornish Jr., by the way, top of the hour.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Okay, so Palou Award has been treated and released from the Indiana University Infield Care Center. And Alexander Rossi went there as well, and Romain Grosjean. Those are definitively now the three cars that were involved. Palou Award, who was released, he's under his own power and was doing interviews, so it looks to be okay. He suffered, I think, probably the most innocuous of the three in terms of damage, but that's, obviously relative. Alexander Rossi, Romain Grosjean. Those are the three involved in a Turn 2 accident at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway just a couple of minutes ago. And again, to repeat, if for some reason a driver is not able to drive in the race after qualifying the car, it is it is not the driver, it is the car that is qualified. And so somebody else could get into a car and it is in the race. So we shall see what that means for Alexander Rossi and for that team. You know what, Caleb? I know that we got Hornish coming up in just a couple minutes, and we've given away 5. Let's do 4 more in the numbers game.
Sounds good.
239-1070 is the telephone number in our numbers game. This is how we do it. I'm off tomorrow because, I got a couple things to do. But notably, tomorrow I will be, along with Derek Schultz, we will be emceeing the rookie luncheon from the American Dairy Association of Indiana. It is a thrill. It is an honor to do it. We do it each and every year. There are 4 rookies in this year's class, obviously. Kyle Collette, who we talked about earlier in the news with Kyle Collette, moving now to the back of the field. And then in addition to that, Mick Schumacher, who I guess technically now gets scored as the fastest rookie qualifier because Kyle Collette technically has no time. So we'll see how they do that. But it's now, in general, just the rookie luncheon. So Mick Schumacher, Kyle Collette, Dennis Hauger, and Jacob Abel. Those are your 4 rookies in this year's class. As for the numbers game, you know how we do it. You give me a number, I give you a driver. If you get the driver that wins the Indy 500, I will get you an IMS hat. I will also get you a gift card to Chicago's Pizza. I will also get you a hero card signed by the winning driver, thanking you for being a part of their team and part of the company. That you can be the envy of all of your friends with that little prize. And then, obviously, Chicago's gift card for all winners. We will give it away 3 different ways. That is way number 1 to win, to get the winner of the race. Way number 2 would be to get the driver that moves through the field the most spots. Now, well, Jake, what if 2 drivers both move 18 spots in the race? Well, if one of them starts 22nd and finishes 4th, moves 18 spots, the other one starts 34th and finishes 16th, moves 18 spots, it actually goes to he or she that starts the furthest back, because conventional wisdom would say they have the inferior car and had the most work cut out for them. And then obviously first out, that would be whoever finishes in 33rd. They also will be awarded. Now, it appears as though there was slight damage to the car of Christian Rasmussen as well from his teammate Alexander Rossi in this crash earlier. All right, do we have callers lined up, Caleb?
Yeah, we got a few ready to go here.
Who are we leading with here?
Let's start with Greg.
Greg. What's up, Greg?
Jake, how's it going, buddy?
You know it's going. It's going, right? Everything going all right with you?
Yeah. It was a beautiful day at the track yesterday.
How's life in the landscaping business, Greg? Everything going okay?
Yeah, pretty good. Yep.
You know, you're like Georgia football. You're living between the hedges, right?
That's right.
Greg, what number would you like?
I'll go 22.
I don't mean to laugh, Greg. As a matter of fact, I shouldn't laugh. Alexander Rossi, Greg. Alexander Rossi. We certainly hope the best for Alexander Rossi. He is in the middle of row number 1, but that's incredible luck or timing that after that incident, that would be the first caller that we would get. Alexander Rossi to our buddy Greg. All right, who's next, Caleb?
Darnell's up next.
Darnell, what number you need?
Jake, how you doing?
I'm good.
Number 6.
Number 6 for Darnell. Ooh, Darnell got a good one. Darnell's actually won this game in our college challenge on a few occasions. Darnell, you got a guy that yesterday said that he thought last year he had a pole position award within him, and they just missed it a little bit. And then yesterday kind of the same, but he still has a darn good call. Felix Rosenquist. Felix Rosenquist to Darnell. Who do we have next?
Dan.
Dan, how are you?
I'm great, Jake. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, Dan. Have we met one another? You sound like a nice fellow.
No, we've never met, but I've called the show several times.
You have?
I'm the compliance and enforcement inspector for the company.
Well, everything seemed to be going okay on the compliance end of things, Dan, from best you can tell?
100.
Okay, good. I'm not fudging my taxes or anything, so I promise I'm completely compliant with all things involved here, right?
You are.
Dan, if you don't mind me asking real quick, and we do this sometimes with Get to Know Our Listener, we've had a lot of good reviews on this, and kids in particular tell us they love this part of the show. I always ask people from time to time what you most enjoy and then also what you most loathe about this show. Because, listen, there are several restaurants I go to. I don't like everything on the menu, right? So if the special that day is that, I'm like, eh. So I'd like to know what you love and what you hate about the show.
What I love is the banter between you and Eddie. It's fantastic.
Okay. And then what you dislike?
Well, not so much I dislike. I wish you'd talk more about IndyCar even when May's not here.
Okay, that's fair. I appreciate that. Who is your favorite driver?
Of all time, A.J. Foyt.
A.J. Foyt. So what number are you going with today?
14.
And I kid you not, this was a randomly assigned deal, okay? Randomly assigned. Dan is your name, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are you going to the race, Dan?
I am. It'll be by 46.
46. Where do you sit for the race?
Southwest Vista standee.
Do you know the row and seat number by chance?
J and seats 1 through 6.
I'm guessing you've had those for like 20 of those 46 years, right?
Many of them. Many.
That's what I love about it.
My mom used to work for Ralph Salvino back in the mid to late 70s. She was the chef of the Victory Banquet at the Indiana Convention Center.
That's awesome. All right, so Dan, who are you rooting for when you're there? You're going to stand up and cheer on lap number 1, and you're going to scream Dan's little heart out for who?
Santino.
Dan, I kid you not. You have the guy starting in the middle of row number 2. You got Santino Ferrucci.
Awesome, guys.
Santino Ferrucci is your guy. All right, we have one left to give away. One left to give away. Who do we have, Caleb?
Mark.
Mark, what's up?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm all right. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm sitting here with one of your friends, Brian Barrett.
Oh,
hey,
my goodness.
How you doing, buddy?
Listen, do me a favor, Mark, and this is going to be esoteric for the whatever you do. If Brian's heading over to the coffee machine, make it decaf. That guy doesn't need any more caffeine. Okay, I'm just telling you right now. That guy's a mile a minute. But
I'm ready to jump in the cold plunge, Jake.
Listen. I've known Brian my entire life, or more so his entire life, and I got to tell you, his family is absolutely family to me. So I appreciate that you're there with him.
Yeah.
What number would you like?
Let's go number 9.
Ooh, number 9. Are you a Beatles fan by chance?
Not
number
so much.
9. Number 9. Are you going to the race?
Fan. Yeah, I'm going to the race.
And I'm sorry,
sweets, baby.
Give me your name one more time because I got to write it down here.
I'm Mark.
Mark
Morgan.
Okay, Mark. Okay, well now everybody's going to call you here. And
yeah, right.
I mean, I don't know if you know, 17 people are listening. 15 of them now are going to call you if they know your number. So, Mark, just so you know, and it's interesting that you'd be sitting there with Brian Barrett and that he's, Mr. Caffeine, because you got a guy that is not necessarily primarily sponsored by Java House, but secondarily so. And sweetest Splenda, Christian Rasmussen, is going to join the program this week, goes to Mark. And Mark Morgan, in case you're curious. But there you go. That's how we do the numbers game. By the way, Caleb, you're new to this ongoing experience of the numbers game. You're a fan, not a fan?
Dude, I'm not new to this. I've been a listener for years.
You're new to running you're new to being in the thick of it, right?
That is true.
I mean, it's one thing to, listen, it's one thing to watch the World Series. It's the other to be sitting there with the fastballs coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I love it. And I love, the March Madness game that you do. I think this is great. But this is the one. This is the original.
All right, listen, I'm impressed by this. Ernie, Darnell, Mark, Dan, Greg, Jonathan, Steve, Jameson, Brian, and Mo. I appreciate that all of them seem to have some level of interest and or knowledge of the Indy 500 because it can indeed be I get it. I mean, it is a major party, social, civic event. But how big it is a sporting event in today's world, that one, I'm not as sure because I get the fact that There's a lot of turnover of names, faces, whatever else, and some of the big names no longer around. All right, one of the biggest won the race 20 years ago, and he's going to join us next.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
And Sam Hornish Jr. right on the tail of Marco Andretti. Can a teenager win in Indianapolis? Here's the finish. Sam Hornish Jr. makes the pass. He'll win it. Sam Hornish Jr. goes to the inside of Marco Andretti and wins it in the final 100 yards. Sam Hornish Jr. has won the 90th Indianapolis 500 in an incredible finish.
Tell you, what a winner and what a driver. He sure deserved it. But we had a lot of adversity today, but he came back and won that race. I can't even believe it.
That's how Roger Penske described the emotions. Mike King on the radio call. Sam Hornish Jr., the dramatic pass over Marco Andretti, and that race, hard to believe. 20 years ago, back in 2006, when Sam Hornish Jr. was an Indianapolis 500 winner, and he joins us now on the program. Sam, first off, it is cool still to hear that 20 years later. It doesn't feel like 20 years ago, but thanks for joining the program, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, is it how often do you hear that call? You know, can a teenager win at Indianapolis and then Hornish makes the pass itself? Or how often do you see the pass?
I never get tired of hearing it, I can tell you that much. But a lot of times when I do speaking engagements, people will ask me, you know, if we're going to put up something that, you know, kind of signifies, you know, your racing that would get the people, you know, interested in what's going on, you know, what would you pick? I'm like, the last 4 laps of the 2006 Indy 500, and then they watch it and they're like, man, that's I forgot how good that was, or I never saw that, or whatever the deal happens to be. And then, you know, most of the times before I get ready to speak, that's playing, and I'm like, you know, a lot of times I sit there and the first parts of my speech were like, I get nervous every time watching it because like, this is going to be the time that I don't get there. So, you know,
is it honestly
I made it once again, so that's awesome.
When you watch it, is it kind of like a? I mean, obviously you're watching it in that form in a third person, but like, when you watch it, is it almost surreal to you sometimes to be like, I really did that? That really was me, and I really did do that kind of thing.
Sometimes, yeah. You know, it's still, you know, really, you know, kind of emotional to a point, you know, just because of the fact of how incredible it was. And, you know, I would say that regardless of, you know, the fact that it was me, you know, either way, you know, if I would have won that or lost that, it was still a great race. And the fact that I won it makes it even better for me. But to think of, you know, that being the 90th running, and that was the first time that there was a pass on the lead lap or on the last lap for the win. You know, it is really saying something to it. And, you know, the only thing that really, to me, rivals that is, you know, the call for the 2011 race, you know, with Hildebrand and Weldon, and, you know, for a whole different reason. But, you know, now the cars are different, you know, with the tows that they get and the amount of, you know, drag that they have on them, you know, it makes those races, you know, a lot closer. And, you know, I think that now we're a little bit more used to seeing stuff like that. But, yeah, definitely, you know, I was down for the count, you know, from turn 3 until turn 3, you know, and somehow we came back to life as far as, you know, when you listen to the radio, you listen to the TV, you know, they had Marco's face on the trophy already.
Well, listen, I'll never forget. At the time I was working at Channel 6, that was the last year before I was actually part of the Speedway Radio Network. And I remember when Marco came in, I was there right when Marco got out of the car, Sam, and he got out of the car and he takes off his helmet and you know, the sock over the head, and he says, "Where did the speed come from?" And I remember he repeated, he goes, "Where did the speed come from?" So I'll ask you, Sam Hornish Jr., because I've never asked you, where did the speed come from?
It was always there is the key. You know, if you look at the whole month of May, every day that we were on track that year, from qualifying to first day to, you know, to the final practice to carb day, you know, myself versus Marco, it's about a 4 mile an hour difference on most laps. And that's what the difference was on the last one as well. And, you know, the big thing that you have to remember, being a rookie, you know, they gave him a car that they were trying to make sure that he could make it to the end of the race. So it had more downforce on it, which means more drag. It creates a bigger hole in the air. He can go slower, I can go faster and behind him. He was probably running, if I were to guess, somewhere in the area of +2 on the rear wing, and I was running -4. And it was because I'd been there, I'd been experienced, and we knew that that's what it was going to take to win that race and to compete against Weldon and Castroneves and Dixon. So the funny thing about it is and not funny at all for Marco, but he was probably running 12th or so when the yellow comes out, and he cycles through and is in second and gives them an opportunity to win the race. But he didn't have the speed to win that race outright.
Right, organically, right.
The circumstances presented themselves for him to do it. And I mean, you saw Rossi win in 2016. Like, the race is the race. It's 500 miles. You get to the end first. It doesn't matter how you do it. So I had to overcome adversity. He got placed a hand that worked out better than he probably thought he was going to for 450 miles for that race. So that's the speed difference. Just really comes down to, what kind of car I was willing to drive, the experience that I had, and the fact that we were more trimmed out. And, that's the same thing that, Elio and Dixon and some of those other guys were going to do. The first couple years that you run at the Speedway, they generally put, a little bit more downforce on the car, make it a little bit more comfortable for you so that you can make it to the end, get that experience. I was too dumb for the first 3 of my Indy 500s to use the extra downforce. I wanted to be the fastest car and ended up biting me. So, he got a second place finish out of it.
Did you ever talk to Marco about it? I mean, you guys are kind of bonded to an extent from a race fan standpoint, but for you personally, did you guys ever sit down at any point and just talk about those last couple laps?
I don't know that we ever really talked about it too much, but I can tell you that there was a point in time that I was driving down to Indy for an event. I don't even remember what it was, and I got a phone call from an unknown number, and it was Marco, and he left me a message, something, hey D-bag, I hear you're coming into town tonight. Let's catch up. And I played it for my wife, and she goes, "You did beat him in the last 100 feet of the Indy 500." So I think if anybody has the right to call you anything, it's probably him. So we laugh about that from time to time, but there was another instance in 2007 where we were doing the autograph session on Saturday or Friday, I can't remember when it was, and he was sitting beside me, and somebody brought up a picture of the finish. And the way that everything plays out, you've got both cars in the picture, and the walls, being the walls at the Indy 500 don't have, writing and stuff all over them. So it's a great place to sign right underneath your car on the inside of pit wall. And he goes, "Do you like signing that?" Marco said, "Do you like signing that picture?" I said, "Yeah, man, it's pretty cool. It's a great win, and,
Yeah.
definitely unexpected." And he said, "Everyone that you sign winning, I have to sign losing." I'm like, I like it a lot better now. So,
yeah, you got the better end of that deal, right?
Yep, that's for sure.
Here's what I heard, and I want you to tell me. Sam Hornish Jr. is my guest, the 06 Indy 500 winner, and I want you to tell me if this is fact or fiction, okay? But I was told in that race, obviously what we do know is fact, is that you had an incident where you exited pit lane, and I think you had a hose or something still connected, so you were penalized, and it looked at that point like your day was done, right? And you fight your way back, and you start picking your way through. Now, I was told that your intensity in that moment, that at one point you actually snapped at Roger Penske on the radio in a very expletive form to basically say to him, like, "I got this under control. You just got to let me drive." Fact or fiction?
I think that's fiction. I don't remember that, but somebody would probably go through the vault of IndyCar in-car radio and probably prove me wrong. But I do remember, I probably did snap at him some point in time when I was driving a NASCAR, but I really, tried to give Roger as much respect as I always could because he is definitely deserving of it. But, when we went back out there, we were still under yellow. Roger called the races because he was my strategist, and one of the things that, Roger liked to do that was different was he wanted to call when to leave the pits. Most of the teams, it was the right front changer, as he would get done because he was usually,
the best
the
view.
faster, the
right.
two front. he would be able to stand up and look at the fueler and see when the fueler was pulling out. So Roger's got a little bit taller version, plus it's Roger's car. It's got Roger's name on it. It's Roger. You're going to let him do whatever he wants to do. And he's waiting for Chris to start pulling that fuel probe out, and he sees him do it, but it gets jammed. So then we have that problem. We go back out, we're under yellow, and everybody's dejected, and there's not a whole lot going on the radio at the time. And I said, hey, if we say fuel, can we make it to the end from here? And they're like, no, but when you come down to serve your pass-through penalty, if we fuel, you can maybe make it from that point. I said, so all I got to do is stay ahead of the leaders. I ain't got to do anything but just run hard enough to stay ahead of the leaders. And then when they pit, because Weldon, those guys were battling out for the win. They're going full tilt. They're running as much fuel as they can possibly go. So, it was a strategy there. And then even when Giafone crashed and brought out the yellow, I thought, man, now it's really over, because a couple of guys have pitted and now they have new tires, and, I'm on old tires and light on fuel, but it all worked out the way that it should have. But I don't remember, snapping at him at all. I just, if anything, I think I might have said, I got it, and he was probably telling me, save fuel. And I'm watching the mirror and seeing Weldon getting bigger and bigger, knowing that I had to stay on the lead lap. And at some point in time, we were going to have to go. And whether we ran out of fuel or not, that was going to be how we had to play our cards.
You know what's funny, Sam? Sam Hornish Jr., my guest. I remember, after you won Indy, and obviously you went over to NASCAR, and I had limited, and I wouldn't expect you to remember this in any way, shape, or form, but in calling a couple of NASCAR races, the Brickyard included, I called the races at Kentucky, things like that. So I would cross paths with you, and during that time, I realized you were in the midst of your racing career, and you were really buttoned up, and I wouldn't say shy, but you were always reserved, and I would imagine that was in the middle of my career level focus. You sound right now like a completely, I'm not going to say different, but just a laid back, relaxed, life is good at my fingertips dude, as opposed to when you were racing. Do you feel?
You should have talked to me yesterday.
What's that?
I said you should have talked to me yesterday. So, I am in a lot of ways, because at some point, you gotta take care of the sponsors. You want to do the right things. You don't want to say the wrong things. And my problem a lot of times is I wanted to make everybody happy. And when you try to make everybody happy, eventually you make nobody happy, including yourself. So, I do have a little bit of wit about me and a little bit of comedy and charm. But a lot of times, especially when I was on TV, I put that to the side because I was reserved and not wanting to say the wrong thing or have somebody have ammunition against me. But yesterday, my oldest of my sons was running a go-kart race, and he was leading with 4 laps to go, and he got passed. I'm like, just get in second and just wait for the last lap. And then he tries to make the pass, and he got loose and ended up getting passed by 4 other carts and ended up getting back to fourth. But for whatever reason, everybody's like, do you love being at the racetrack? I'm like, no, I hate it. Like, this is insane. Like, I want to puke. Like, it's my son. I've got no control over it. Like, watching on TV takes me back to being a kid. Being at a racetrack and watching a race is one of the hardest things that I can do.
So now that you watch your son race, do you have, because I remember, your dad was obviously very involved in your early racing years. I think PDM was who you first came with at Indy, right? And
Yep.
So, do you now have a greater appreciation for what your dad went through in the early days that you were racing?
My dad really probably told my son it the best that I could ever think of. And he said, Sam, he goes, I feel really bad for you, telling my son. And he goes, why, Papa? He goes, because when your dad and I were first starting racing, he goes, I had no idea what was right or wrong. I only could watch how it progressed in how he finished, and that would tell me whether he did the right things or the wrong things. He goes, he knows so much about it that when he sees you go around the track, he can almost tell what you're going to do before you do it. And he goes, so he's always going to want to tell you this is how you should have done it, or you need to think about doing it this way. And really, that's one of the things that I'm having to back myself up on, because just because I know and I can see all these things because I've experienced them doesn't mean that he's going to take my word for it the first time, because there's a computational thing that happens in our brains as we see circumstances start to happen. we make one choice that's wrong, and then we overcorrect with another one, and we end up wrong on the other side of it. And I think that that's a good thing for all parents raising kids, and really all people that are trying to figure out why somebody doesn't do what you tell them. You know, it's like you hate seeing your kids make same mistakes that you made, especially when you've told them, you know, this is how I do it. But they're living life in real time too. And it's the difference between will they say, yeah, I screwed that up, and they'll learn from it, or they're like, I did the right thing. It just didn't turn out the way that I wanted to. So, you know, life is about, you know, 90% about what happens to it, you know, of how we react to it, and only 10% about what really happens to us. So a lot of times in my life, I got a little bit too concerned with what was happening as opposed to how I was reacting to it. And it really stunted my growth in some ways. And when I got to the other side of that maturity thing where I could start to maintain my emotions better, that was when you get a race win like the Indy 500, because I could have went out there and thrown it all away in the next 30 seconds trying to be a hero. But when you get to a maturity level where you can start to make better decisions. And then when I went to stock car, I threw all that stuff out the window too, because I wanted to win so bad. And it took me a long time to be able to get that maturity back and figure out how to you know, run good in races, and ultimately win in the Xfinity Series, and you know, finish out my career, you know, standing on a podium holding the owner's trophy for Roger, you know, and finishing second that day. And you know, that's the last time I was, you know, in a car. So it's just life is different, difficult, and to sit there and say I know what my dad was going through, or I feel for him, or any of those things, it's hard to do, because it's just, you know, his viewpoint of it was different than mine. You know, he saw something that I really wanted to do, and basically channel it away for me to go and do some things. And then where my son, you know, it's a different thing. He's got different expectations. You know, he's going to go through a bunch of things that I have no idea about, because, you know, there's going to be some doors that open to him because he's my son, and there's going to be some doors that are closed to him because he's my son. So helping me filter all that, or helping him to filter all those things is probably my biggest job in it. And sometimes I need to sit back and not be the driver coach and just be the life coach.
You know, for you, Sam, you won 19 races in the IndyCar Series. You were dominant, right? You won championships. You won the Crown Jewel race. And then you go over to Cup. Now, you know, I know Dario once said that going from IndyCar to stock car was like going from a Corvette to a school bus, as Dario explained it. Aside from the learning curve of feeling out those cars, how much did it eat at you that you didn't have the sustained immediate success on the Cup side that you had on the open wheel side?
You know, all of my life was different. So I also transitioned from being just a husband to being a father at the same time. So there was a whole lot of things that were, you know, new in life to me, and responsibilities that I just didn't have when I was an IndyCar driver. And to be real honest with you, you know, there's probably parts of that becoming a dad that led me to make those decisions. There was obviously sponsor decisions, team decisions, things like that. But I watched the second half of the All-Star race this morning, and I was thinking back, watching, you know, Zilich. He had a really good run, and he had a problem on pit road. My first All-Star race, I transferred in and had a car that was good enough to win, and I made a mistake trying to pass Montoya on lap 2. If I'd have just waited if I would have had the calm and the poise that I would have had in the IndyCar in 2006, you know, I probably would have just waited on that. And by, you know, in all reality, you know, we drove up to the leaders, you know, 3 times throughout that race. So, you know, I think that we could have won. When it comes down to it, at the end of the day, you never know for sure. But, you know, some of those small choices like that, and by trying to get too much too early, you know, set me back. And then, you know, it was also a whole thing where, you know, the whole series is going through a change with the car of tomorrow, and how that all changes. And, you know, Newman and Kurt Busch, you know, they've got different things. And I really never knew how to be that great of a teammate, because when I drove for PDM, I was on my own. When I drove for Panther, I was on my own. And then at Penske, you know, there was a lot of things that, you know, I probably didn't do a good enough job of trying to get out of Elio for the Indy 500 and for the road courses. And there was some things that he probably did a better job of getting out of me for the 1.5 miles on how he could run better over there. So I think that even though Elio and I had a tremendous amount of respect for each other, I don't know that we were that great of teammates, because I don't know that we pushed each other as hard as we could have. I think that there was times where we were definitely more worried about just beating the other guy, and that was that kind of stunted some of my growth. And it really wasn't until 2012 when I filled in for Allmendinger in the second half of the year in the Shell Pennzoil car, and Brad was running for the championship, that I really learned how to be a good teammate and to take care of my teammates and to want the best for somebody else that wasn't named Sam Hornish.
Sam Hornish obviously is my guest there. I wanted to get your perspective on this. Qualifying is done. I'm sure, I don't know if you watched Indy qualifying yesterday. I know you had a lot going on there, obviously, but we just had an incident about an hour ago where Alexander Rossi, who starts in row number 1, Romain Grosjean, and Palou Award were involved in a 3-car accident. Rossi looked to be the most, he kind of hobbled out of the car. They all got out okay, and his car had the worst damage to it. From a race car driver perspective, what does that do from a mental standpoint of knowing everything that has to go into getting the car put back together, but assuming that they're able to go in the race, and we certainly hope the best for Rossi in that situation? What does it do psychologically to then have to go into the race knowing that something happened between qualifying and the race itself?
Well, I was listening to the Fast 12 and the Fast 6 stuff last night. So seeing the jumps that some guys had and also the losses that other guys had, that was very interesting to me. How, some guys gained like a mile an hour and some guys, they just kind of, either stayed the same or even lost a bunch of speed. And it was, that's how Indy is. The weather changes, the track's so big, you've got so much shade from the grandstand that you really have to keep up on those things. In 2006, our month was basically flawless except for that pit stop on lap 150, whatever it was, and also the final day of practice. Not carb day, but the final day of practice that we got to practice, which was the Sunday after pole day. I put myself in a bad position and spun and wrecked the car, but thankfully for us, it was the T car. So I don't know how, if Rossi was in their backup car or if they were in their primary car. So I don't know how, all the roles of that at this point in time, but hopefully for him, the good car is still sitting there. But, sometimes, having that mistake early on in the, before the race is good because it puts you in a better position for when the race starts to be able to make more calmer decisions and be able to put yourself in better position for the end of the race. Sometimes when everything is perfect throughout the month of May, you just, you want to go, lights out from the very beginning. You end up putting yourself in bad situations. So I guess we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But, it sounded like a scary incident that I heard when I was waiting for you guys to come on. So I'm sure I'll have to go check it out once I get off the phone.
Okay, a couple of other things here real quick before you do that. First off, Caleb, the hospital you were born in was where, Caleb? Our producer, Caleb.
Bryan Hospital.
Bryan Hospital. Now, my understanding is, were you born there, Sam, or were your kids born in Bryan Hospital?
I was born at the Bryan Hospital.
Okay, they got a big sign there that says winners are born at Bryan Hospital. You set a pretty decent standard for everybody else to live up to, right?
I guess so.
Does it suck for a kid?
Lowering the bar.
Yeah, but what happens if a kid's born there and he knows he's a natural loser? That seems to be an unfair precedent, right?
Like me, Jake.
Yeah, that's saying something. Okay, I also wanted to ask you about this. I was reading, and we know Wikipedia is all-knowing, Sam. According to the Wikipedia, you have helped out a lot at the Defiance Medical Center, including helping them add a heart center at that hospital. First off, is that true? And if it is, what was your connection that led you to feel the need for that cause?
Well, thankfully, I grew up in a small town, and even though I, have Defiance as my home, Northwest Ohio is my home. I was born in Bryan. I grew up in Stryker. I moved to Defiance when I was about 8 or 9 years old. I graduated from Archbold. I lived in Napoleon for several years. We went to North Carolina for a little while. Then when we came back, we ended up in a little town just outside of Toledo called White House. And in all reality, there's been so much of this area that has given so much to me, whether it was fan support. There was times where, we had to hawk cordless phones to be able to make it to the next race in an Indy car, and people bought these phones, and just all these little things, and the community's really been good to me. So when I had the opportunity to give back, and that hospital was the Defiance Regional Medical Center was being built, basically during the height of my IndyCar career, it gave me an opportunity to be able to give back. My father died at the age of 50 of a massive heart attack, 51 of a massive heart attack. And it was just one of those things where heart-related issues were kind of always on my mind, and it gave me an opportunity to be able to give back. That hospital is kind of a unique thing because it's directly between Fort Wayne and Toledo, and they don't really use that heart center as much anymore, and they're now like a level 1 trauma thing because 24 has gone into such a big highway that if there's things that happen along there, they have to use it. So they use a little bit of that cardio cath lab for that. But I did, my uncle went through there and had a cath done and a bunch of other stuff. So, we were able to do a lot with the community, and it was our pleasure to be able to do it.
Well, listen, man. I want to thank you for that because I know I know what that means for people, and I know how important it is to have a cath lab nearby. So in that regard, to have that available to people at that time, and certainly my condolences on your father, but to know that means that there might be other people that don't have that loss. I hope you understand what that means to people. Lastly, Sam Hornish Jr., give me right now your odds on this year's Indy 500. Give me the one that you think is the favorite, not named Alex Palou. Give me the one that keep an eye on them because they've impressed you, and give me the one that, I guess more so than anything, you've been pleasantly surprised with what they've been able to do, and that's under the assumption that you followed this pretty closely.
I don't follow anything close enough. I got 5 kids, but it was my grandfather that passed away. I don't want to, but my dad's still.
Oh, I thought you said father. My apologies. Yeah. I thought for a second. I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah. and I might have, but no, my dad's still around. But and he actually went with us to the race yesterday, so we had a great.
That's what I thought
because
you referenced him. I thought, wait a minute. So my apologies. But.
Yeah. No. Right up until about if I'd never heard the Rossi thing, I'm just it was super interesting to me because when he won in 2016, he probably didn't have a right to win, but they played the game the way that you need to play it. Now he's came back multiple times and been fast enough to win, and it seems like all these things kind of continue to happen. I'm going, I think he's got enough behind him, seeing how he handled himself in qualifying, the position that he put himself in and done. And that time was going. So I think I might have to, change that strategy. Palou's been so good at Indy too, and now he's got an issue. So you guys, you should have called me an hour earlier, and then I would have looked like a complete dunce because everybody would have been. Hey, he just jinxed those 2 guys. So man, you look at all the defending winners. I was surprised at how many defending winners there were when I was looking at it yesterday. So who knows what might come out there to surprise you, and it's I think that there's just a lot of parity. There's just, in some ways, if you don't allow me to choose Palou, there's 15 other guys that could get it done, and there's by no means you would be surprised that they did. However, Palou has seemed to put himself on an elevation of his own is really surprising to me because it's in an era that is, I think, as competitive as that you've seen in such a time. And I don't want to say that it was more competitive than what it was when I raced, but it seems like it's really close to that. There was a time where it was like you knew that it was either going to be a Penske car or it was going to be a Ganassi car, or however that all seemed to work out. And now it's just like all these little knobs you can turn on the cars have been taken away, and you've got more strategy. So people are constantly looking at how can I do this even though I don't have the fastest car, and that changes the complete complexion of the race.
Well, there's 8 former winners by my calculation in the race. You are 46 years old. Al Unser won it at 47. Elio's going to race till he's 70, so we look forward to seeing you in the race next year.
Yeah. I have dreams every once in a while of I get a call from Roger or somebody wanting me to come race, and it's like I got so much stuff going on. I don't think I could say yes. It's hard enough for me just to come down and watch the race.
I understand. 5 kids speaks to that, right? And fortunately, your dad around to watch it with you. Sam, listen, man, really appreciate it. And it sounds like everything is going well, and obviously I can hear that kind of peace and content within what is a busy lifestyle. I realize after racing, but great career, no question about it. And hard to believe 20 years ago, but congratulations again on being an Indy 500 winner.
Thank you. Every time I think, man, I can't hardly believe it's been 20 years ago, I turn and I look at my 18-year-old daughter and go, you weren't here. So it's got to be 20 years ago.
That's
so
right. Or somebody like me reminds you, right?
High school this year, and it's like all hands on deck. I'm trying to get everything done because I want to do her graduation party. Like, it's just, I tell people all the time, I'm like, if I told you what I do on a daily basis, you wouldn't think I'm that busy, but I don't ever sit down until it's dark out. So I must be doing something either massively wrong or completely right.
Well, we appreciate it. You certainly did it right 20 years ago, no question about it. And enjoy the graduation and everything that comes with it, Sam.
All right, thank you.
All right, Sam Hornish Jr., who probably should be a weekly guest now on the program, no question about it. All right, a little over. We'll take a quick break. We'll reset. JMV, I just saw him in the building. We'll find out in about 20 minutes what he's got going on as part of the crossover brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. Hey there, Jake Query for Game Day Men's Health. Clinics, of course, in Avon, Carmel, Fishers, and Greenwood, the best. I love Scott up in Carmel. Great group, great people, very relaxed. And that's the key. They want to make sure, guys, when you go into Game Day Men's Health, that you are in there in a relaxed environment and in there and out in under an hour, whether you're talking about the peptide therapies they have, the testosterone replacement therapy, the weight loss injections, whatever it may be. If you're simply getting that midday feel where you're like, man, I just don't feel the same energy level. I need that nap like I didn't need back when I was 25, for example. That's where Game Day Men's Health is there for you with a number of different therapies, and they want to make sure that they are doing it with a game plan designed specifically to you and what you're comfortable with. That's what I love also about Game Day Men's Health. Feel free to make that consultation. Please do, as a matter of fact, go into that consultation at no charge to look over everything they have and find out what Game Day Men's Health can do for you to get you back in the game. Again, Avon, Carmel, Fishers, and Greenwood. Find out everything they have available. Make that appointment at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com.
It's Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Thank you to Sam Hornish Jr. I'm telling you, that is a totally different sounding Sam Hornish Jr., at least publicly, than what he was as a driver, no question. But a massive talent. Massive talent. And I thought the kind of breakdown of the psychology of sport, of, knowing, trying to please everybody and all of those things was really, really good insight from Sam Hornish Jr. He would be awesome as some sort of an analyst, but obviously, and I can appreciate the fact that he's got a lot going on the calendar there, goes without saying.
I just loved his laugh.
Yeah.
I so much so I clipped it up, Jake.
Oh, really? Okay, here we go. He sounds a little bit like a Woody Woodpecker, maybe? One more time? Okay, so if I say something that I find funny and no one else does, can you do me the favor if I make some sort of my funny out of left field whimsical comments? Can you just hit the? That's got a little Joel Erickson sound.
It does.
To it, right?
It does. That's a great point.
Joel Erickson's laugh though is more demonically maniacal, right?
I was making some promos for the show. You might have heard it, Jake, but Friday and him giving blood while on the air was where were you radio moment for this station. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and he didn't seem to in any way, shape, or form have any effect from it, right?
None.
Like he was like completely relaxed and just totally normal. Okay, when it comes to the Indy 500, and I did realize, by the way, the other day I thought about it, and I thought, I say the word okay too much. That's my crutch word. I need to eliminate okay out of my vocabulary. Would that be okay if I do that? See, if you could. I need the laugh.
Sorry, this is going to take some getting used to here.
Well, that's okay. Again, I'm pointing at you. The laugh. Yeah, thank you. See?
I got to tell Eddie about this so he can get to it.
Do you know the postal abbreviation for the state of Oklahoma?
I don't.
Okay. See? Sam Hornish loves it.
He'll always be there for you.
I will explain one of the things that happened yesterday that might confuse people. I'll recap what I talked about earlier, and we will talk to John and find out what he's got cooking in about 15. Okay.
This is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I have to think of a word other than okay. It's dark outside, by the way. Hope everyone's okay. See? There we go. The laugh. I said okay again. We should do that.
I gotta fade down the music first. Hold on.
Now,
Oh my goodness, Jake, you're killing me.
Okay. Where is it? Boom, boom. There we go. Okay. See? After qualifying, yesterday Kyle Collette did a really good job, the rookie for AJ Foyt Racing. And Jack Harvey, Connor Daly has been really fast. I mean, really fast since the track was open for business this year. Connor Daly might be the most consistently good car. And to put it in shorter form than I explained earlier, the simplest way to explain what took place yesterday after qualifying, and it is a fair question to say, why would they not have noticed this on the cars in the tech inspection in the morning if there was an alteration done? Why did they not catch it before these cars went out for tech inspection? Why was it after qualifying when this infraction was discovered? But the infraction itself is pretty simple, and that is it's not simple, it's intricate. But the rule book for IndyCar very specifically states that there are particular parts of the car that you cannot alter in any way. You can't remove them. You can't put tape around them. We saw it last year with the attenuators with the Penske cars. And in the case of Kyle Collette and Jack Harvey, whose teammates are Santino Ferrucci and Connor Daly, respectively, those cars, at some point between when they went through morning tech inspection and then when they ultimately were done qualifying for the day, they had made a change to, as best I can understand it, and I'm not a gearhead in terms of understanding cars, but the engines in these particular cars, they have what's called the hybrid system in them. And that hybrid box has a covering to it that Dallara determines, okay, this has to go in this area and you cannot do anything to alter it. Now, I've heard conflicting reports. One is that they removed the covering and the other is that they put tape around the covering. I'm not sure which was the infraction, but regardless, the reason those things are in place is because when you are in an Indy car and you are involved in an accident, the car is designed from a physics standpoint to disperse all of the energy immediately outwards, to go away from the driver. And that's why when you see a crash like we saw earlier today with Alexander Rossi, Pato O'Ward, and Romain Grosjean, it looks oftentimes even worse than it is because the car is designed for, upon impact, everything to basically implode from the inside out to send all of the energy away from the driver. And for that reason, there are certain parts of the car on Dallara that they look at the chassis and they say, from a safety standpoint, you cannot alter these pieces and they have to be on there because that helps disperse the energy away from the driver, and it is a safety first versus speed issue. So there are other things you can do to the car to move parts away or put tape over them or whatnot to make it go faster that are not determined as those critical parts that you can't touch. And they obviously, both of these cars, did it in a part where they weren't supposed to touch because it was designed in the rule book that those are the ones that are deemed untouchable. And when you look at the fact that both cases, they have teammates that were even faster, then you would determine that conventional wisdom would tell you this was not something where they were going for a distinct advantage in trying to skirt the rules. I think it was a complication where the rules are nuanced as such that someone erred on both sides to the point of an infraction, but not one that is deemed to be nefarious for the wrong reasons. And I truly do believe that. J&V is here. John, what's on the big program today?
Kevin Lee, who's going to join us, and we'll have plenty of time, I would guess, considering the weather and the fact that practice is canceled. He'll join us from Fox. Stephen Holder a little bit later on, too. So do these cars go to the backup cars, go to the back of the field?
If they go, yes. If they have to go to a backup, they will go to the back of the field. Or if the driver changes, it goes to the back of the field.
Wow.
But
That's
I
a
think,
big deal today.
I think
then.
Award's car is going to be okay, and I think Grosjean as well. I think Rossi's car they could fix, although it was a pretty heavy hit. But he got out and limped pretty severely. If you think about when Stephen Wilson got hurt and Graham Rahal filled in for him, Rahal then had to go to the back of the field. The same happened for Hunter Ray when he got into the car that was qualified in 2011 by someone else. So we'll see in that regard. My concern would be for Rossi just that he's okay because he got out and limped pretty heavily. That was a hard hit.
That was. What happened right there, too? Did he just spun?
Yeah, it looked like going into turn number 2, the rear end of the car, something probably broke would be my guess because the rear end stepped out. I mean, Rossi's got a pretty good idea what he's doing, right? Although Rossi, Brendan King pointed this out, and it's true. And Rossi has turned more laps than anybody out there for like 3 of the 4 practice days. He was the bell cow lap turner, and they get 31 sets of tires, and I think it's possible that he was on a set of tires that combined with these conditions just lost grip, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It spun around, and then as the drivers always say at that point, John, you're a passenger, right? I mean, you're just kind of at the will of what they're doing.
Well, that's too bad because they had one hell of a day yesterday.
They did.
And then all of a sudden, poof.
You got some sun.
gone.
Were you
I
out
got
there?
a lot of sun. I was not out there. We were at the pool. I was with Caleb for a little bit yesterday morning. We were going to play hoop, me and James and Caleb, and Southport High School had little bitty basketball going on or something, so we had to cancel that. And we went and had a cup of coffee. They had breakfast. I went and got poolside and listened to the broadcast here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Okay, that's cool.
Paradise Day Watson. It was awesome, too, by the way. Anita breaking it in. It's better than this weather out here right now.
This is not good.
Do we know anything about Friday, Saturday, or Sunday? It's changed. It's gone. And seriously, not just subtleties, but like 180s.
I know.
In the past week.
Here's what has always been my concern.
Yeah.
I'm under the belief that when it comes to the race forecast.
You think we got some hedgers because of the Bill Meck syndrome?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Whatever the forecast percentage is, you got to add 15%, right? You remember he's the one that said you got a better chance of winning the lottery than seeing a car turn.
Yeah, and then he didn't work here much longer after that, did he?
No, because people slept in and were like, wait, what happened? I think it looks like. And I hate this. Man, do I hate it. I think Carb Day looks kind of dicey.
It looks really – it went from literally this morning I saw it was partly sunny 75, and people were saying it's going to be perfect. I just looked, and it said, like, rainy and 60. That's not even close.
Right.
Not even close.
But, how many times have we been out there, though? We're like, man, it turned out to just be awesome, and,
I know. So I actually went out there today. Lot number 6, 6A is where the Bronze Fun Time Camper is going to be for the night before the 500 JMV Takeover. So I scouted that location out, and I went by and talked to Paul, who lives in the neighborhood right next door, and got a parking spot over there, too. It was nice of Paul.
That's cool.
Yeah, Paul is a big-time listener to the show, to the stations, all these stations here, and was out mowing, and I just stopped and I said, hey, I may need a spot here. You got a spot? So
Paul hooked you up, right?
Paul hooked me up.
So when do you begin with your venture out there? And obviously we got Carb Day between now and then. But
I go out Carb Day, 10 a.m., 10 until noon, which is, we'll see how dicey that may look. All of a sudden we go from passing around a bottle to drinking with fans to being in the media center. I think I'd rather stay home.
Right.
So
last year it looked like last year on race day it looked like this for the first 3 hours of the day, right?
Yeah, exactly. It looked like that. It was freezing too, because we were out in the camper in the Coke lot, and it was cold out there. And then I wore long sleeves and pants for the first time ever.
So then the night before the race, you begin broadcasting at what time?
6 o'clock. And it is literally right on Georgetown right there, 6A. It's, those 2 footbridges that they have that cross over?
Yeah.
We're right between it, those 2 footbridges right there. It is going to be prime real estate.
Is there, now for the takeover or the requests, do you have particular theme of music that you'll be playing?
We'll probably, like Forever Retro, obviously. I don't want anybody to roll up and want to hear any Taylor Swift or anything like that. I'll play Taylor Dane for you, by God, but I'm not playing any Taylor Swift.
I mean,
something like that.
When you think of the speed, I don't know about you, John, but when I think of the Speedway, it's like you got to do REO Speedwagon and Journey, and what I mean.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think Skids is coming out. So to make it easy on Dan Pantos, who's running the board back here, I'll probably keep it out with him, and he'll probably do some work with the Wheels of Steel a little bit live out there. So
Look, I look forward to it. Obviously, I just hope for certain that the weather holds out. I was driving home the other night, and I kid you not, Sunshine Day by the Brady Bunch was playing.
Yes.
It might have been. I don't know if you played.
I'm sure it was me. Yeah,
and
I doubt if anybody else is. Yeah.
So I recorded it, and I sent the video of that to Chris Knight, Peter Brady, and I go, dude, I kid you not, this is on the radio here. And he said. He goes, well, let me just say this. You better request that for Saturday night and race day because he's coming to the race, and he's like, I need sunshiny day in Indy the whole time, and we're doing a dinner Thursday night, and he's like, and I'll sing it if
he's
that's what it takes.
He's got to do Time to Change when he went through puberty. Why can't we do that? Shut-a-da-na-na. That's one of the few times we ever saw somebody, we saw Beaver all of a sudden, and we saw Opie Taylor all of a sudden, start to get acne when they got older.
Right.
But, Peter Brady actually went through puberty in 30 minutes for us right there.
He did.
It was beautiful. All of a sudden, you can't be in the group anymore because you can't sing.
He did confess to me that was acting, that he claims that his voice had already changed.
Then Greg wrote a song. Remember how talented Greg wrote a song to outline his puberty.
Of course. I got it. Yeah. And Alice said, I don't know what he got. He just said, I got it. And then.
You think that was the most eventful going through puberty ever on TV?
Yes.
That was pretty amazing.
So the big show today, tell me again what you have lined up.
Yeah,
Kevin
we
Lee
got Kevin Lee. We've got Stephen Holder. I'm going to joke about it. The Eastern Conference semifinal. What a joke.
It is.
What an absolute joke.
The Pacers would beat either of these teams in 5, right?
This is so bad. Can you imagine being the home team and being down 30 in Game 7 at home? Where's your pride, by God? Oh, my God.
And you're down 30 to a team with James Harden going 0 for 26 from three-point range.
Was he 1 for 8 or something?
I think he was 0 for 6 from 3, 2 for 10 from the floor.
This postseason, and Kristen Airy and I have argued about it. This postseason, the NBA has absolutely sucked. It's been awful, and they've had some 7-game series and some tight games, but it's been horrible.
What's Denary been arguing about?
He thinks that it's been compelling.
I
think it sucked.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
And I think it's funny that it sucked too. Serves them right for screwing up Halliburton the way they did.
No, who are we blaming for the Halliburton injury?
I'm blaming everybody, but just bad luck.
Man, it is such a gut punch, right?
Yeah. Hey, good job, you guys, yesterday, though. That sounded fun.
It was good. It was fun out there. It was a busy day, but it was fun, and it was fun to pack it all into one. All right, John's going to pack it all in and bring you home until 6 p.m. I'll be back with you. I'm off tomorrow for the Rookie Luncheon, back on Wednesday. Thank you to Sam Hornish Jr., Mike Chappell, as well for joining us on the program. And I thank all of you for